The seasoned hunter in the village, known for his archery skills, couldn't possibly hit the eye socket of a moving bone-winged horse with precision. Yet Xiao Houzi managed to do it. That's simply unbelievable. At this moment, Jiang Shan also noticed the situation and looked with great astonishment at Xiang Beifei, who was drawing his bow and shooting arrows. Did he hit it? Jiang Shan was incredulous. The bone-winged horse leader on the other side obviously sensed something was wrong. It smelled the threat, and it came from Xiang Beifei on the treetop. At this moment, the foal and the old horse stumbled back to the herd, and the bone-winged horse leader hesitated no longer, immediately leading its tribe away. Xiang Beifei's arrow was originally aimed at the powerful bone-winged horse, but after a moment of contemplation, he put down the bow and arrow. Not long after, Jiang Chuan and the others arrived. Seeing the 3 fallen bone-winged horses, Jiang Chuan also smiled and said to Jiang Shan, "Sixth brother, you're amazing. I thought the target was that old horse, but unexpectedly, you took down 3 strong ones. These 3 strong horses were well-fed, much sturdier than the old horse, and would provide food for a family for over 10 days. Everyone exchanged glances silently. After a while, a hunter spoke up. These 3 strong horses were shot by Xiao Houzi. What? Xiao Houzi? Jiang Chuan looked doubtfully at Xiang Beifei, who jumped down from the branch, reluctant to believe that Xiao Houzi could possess such skill. But Jiang Shan was very excited as he looked at Xiang Beifei, asking, "How did your archery become so good?" "I don't know, ever since I lost the moon print, I feel like all my reflexes have improved, including archery, as if I've learned it instinctively. Maybe I was born to shoot arrows," Xiang Beifei said. Born to shoot arrows? Jiang Shan couldn't remember his son having this ability. "You never liked to practice archery before." "I don't know how I was before. You all said I used to have a moon print, right?" Xiang Beifei stroked his arm, where the scar of the removed moon print was. He didn't want to show too much ability. He needed to guide these people step by step to believe and change their thoughts. Sure enough, upon hearing Xiang Beifei speak this way, Jiang Shan and others felt uncertain and uneasy. Even other hunters deeply believed in the moon god. At this moment, Xiang Beifei's words were no less than telling them that he changed after losing the moon print, challenging their beliefs. This is strange. Could losing the moon print really enhance that much? Jiang Shan pondered unconsciously, also touching his own moon print. Not only him, other hunters seemed to be questioning. Xiang Beifei asked, "Should these 3 horses be dealt with?" Only then did everyone remember, these 3 bone-winged horses were the priority. Their meat was much better than the old horses. The original hunting target was that old horse with weak fighting power, but unexpectedly, Xiang Beifei directly took down 3 strong horses, which was a great harvest. Hunters didn't have time to think anymore, and began to handle the bodies of the 3 bone-winged horses swiftly. They removed the edible meat from the bone-winged horses, spread special herbs to avoid attracting other desolate beasts due to the blood smell, and cut off the bone wings, which were very sharp and could be refined into hunting tools back in the village. Such perfect bone wings were rarely obtained. Thinking of this, they praised Xiang Beifei's archery again, but in their hearts started wondering about the issue of Xiao Houzi not having a moon print. The hunters took everything they could from the bone-winged horses, but they didn't return to the village yet, instead temporarily storing the items in a hunting cave. This hunting trip was far from over. After all, Mengdong hunting aimed to gather prey enough to sustain the tribe for 2 to 3 months, and 3 bone-winged horses were not enough. They needed to hunt as much as possible. The group continued on their journey, seeking the next prey. Injuries were inevitable during hunting, but soon everyone was surprised to find that with Xiao Houzi around, any impending danger would be promptly eliminated by Xiao Houzi using that bow and arrow. "Xiao Houzi, you are quite the marksman. This earth beast's eye is smaller than my pinky nail, and you managed to hit it? How did you do it?" Many hunters praised Xiang Beifei's archery skills. Several times Xiang Beifei's archery saved some inexperienced hunters from the claws of desolate beasts. "I don't know. I just feel like all my senses have become sharper." Xiang Beifei maintained his reply. Initially, others had doubts about Xiao Houzi's words, but now their beliefs wavered. This archery skill couldn't be faked. Could it really be because of the moon print? Is the Divine Lord's moon print weighing us down? Jiang Chuan asked during a rest in a mountain recess. Nonsense. You mustn't question the Divine Lord. Jiang Shan took out his water bladder and drank, refuting. But sixth brother, you've seen Xiao Houzi's transformation. Can you not recognize your own son? Jiang Chuan patted Xiang Beifei's shoulder and gave a thumbs up. Jiang Shan couldn't explain it now either. Xiao Houzi's changes indeed began after the attack from the Desolate Beast and losing his moonprint. The transformations were too evident. Even his belief in the Divine Lord started wavering. Captain, your strength seems to have improved quite a bit too. Wait, don't tell me you also don't have a moonprint? Jiang Song teased. Jiang Shan's strength today was witnessed by all. Not only was Xiao Houzi's archery astonishing, but even Jiang Shan became extremely formidable. My moonprint is fine. Jiang Shan touched the moonprint on his arm and said solemnly. In reality, he also felt it. Ever since he woke up this morning, his whole state had become quite unusual, as if he had cast off a heavy burden, always feeling that something had returned to his body, experiencing rebirth. Was it really because of the moonprint? But his moonprint was still there. Jiang Shan kept rubbing the moonprint on his arm with his fingers, remembering that in the past, he had a connection with the moonprint, and when he touched it, there would be some strange sensations. The moonprint felt like it was a part of his arm, even pinching it would cause pain. But for some reason, no matter how he pinched it today, there was no sensation from the moonprint, as if that piece of flesh did not belong to him. The more puzzled he was, the more he rubbed the moonprint. Suddenly realizing something, his expression paused. What's wrong, sixth brother? Are you feeling unwell? Jiang Chuan noticed Jiang Shan's face didn't look right. Nothing. I'll go take a look around first. You all rest here. In a quarter of an hour, we'll continue moving. Jiang Shan stood up and hurriedly left the crowd, walking towards the other side of the valley. He walked until others couldn't see him, then stopped, rolled up his sleeve, and looked at his moonprint, utterly shocked. The moonprint that should have accompanied him growing on his wrist had been forcibly torn off by him. His moonprint actually fell off. How is this possible? Wasn't the moonprint fine yesterday? For a moment, Jiang Shan's mind went blank. He never knew the moonprint could fall off on its own. Jiang Shan looked incredulously at the moonprint he had rubbed off, which now looked like a piece of dumpling skin, shriveled and wrinkled in his hand. This can't be. How could my moonprint fall off? Jiang Shan felt his mouth dry. He had always been a devout follower of the moon god, viewing the moonprint as the supreme divine object, the source of his limitless power, and even whenever he went out hunting, he'd habitually say, "Divine Lord bless," and only feel at ease after looking at the moonprint in his hand. But, for some reason, his moonprint just fell off like that. What he couldn't accept the most was the change in his state today. Previously, when he fought desolate beasts, his strength always came from the moonprint, and to exert strength in his hands, feet, and every joint, he needed to draw from the moonprint. It always felt laborious and uncomfortable. But he had gotten used to it, thinking it was the moonprint that gave him his power, and that he should be grateful to the Divine Lord for the moonprint's help. However, during his battle with the bone-winged horse in the meridian opening phase today, his whole body was filled with explosive power, as if his natural abilities were liberated. Fighting desolate beasts no longer required forcefully drawing power from the moonprint as before, but rather he used a different approach. His strength was distributed throughout every corner of his body, genuinely belonging to him, ready to be summoned without needing to extract power bit by bit from the moonprint. The falling of the moonprint allowed him to directly confront the bone-winged horse in the meridian opening phase without being at a disadvantage. Could it really be that the moonprint was restraining him? This thought appearing in Jiang Shan's mind truly frightened him. I'm actually doubting the Divine Lord. Jiang Shan felt like he had done something shameful, his heart racing uncontrollably, even wanting to slap himself. Doubting the Divine Lord, that's a grave heresy. But then he thought of Xiao Houzi and of his son. His son had undergone a complete transformation after being attacked by a desolate beast and having his moonprint removed, with extraordinary archery skills and incredible strength. Now he himself was experiencing a mutation, and analyzing the battle, it seemed the moonprint was actually taking away his innate power, leading to a sense of awkwardness in previous battles. The moonprint was really holding him back. The more Jiang Shan thought about it, the more shocked he became. The impact was just too great for him. Jiang Shan returned with a peculiar expression, not knowing why his moonprint suddenly fell off, but also understanding what losing it meant. He again pasted the moonprint back on, desperately smoothing it out, tearing off a piece of long leaf grass from the roadside to wrap around the moonprint on his wrist, and then letting down his sleeve, trying his best to act nonchalant. But he was now restless. This change was difficult for him to accept. Xiang Beifei watched all of this, knowing the first step was complete, and Jiang Shan should now realize the changes the disappearance of the moonprint brought him. When he returned, he would deal with those elderly tribespeople deeply faithful to the moon god. Those elders, always claiming the moonprint was the Divine Lord's amulet, wanting to expel Xiang Beifei for losing it. What would their reaction be when finding their own moonprints missing? But just then, Xiaohei's voice suddenly echoed in Xiang Beifei's mind. "Woof woof! Did you find traces of the meat-winged monsters?" Xiang Beifei frowned. "Woof woof! Protect the others." Xiang Beifei knitted his brows, simultaneously sensing a hint of an eerie aura, unmistakably from those meat-winged monsters. This group was ready to act. He lifted his head, looking towards the depths of the forest ahead. The forest was lush with towering peaks. In this forest, you could see magnificent and beautiful peaks everywhere, standing upright like sheer-cut blades, reaching heights of thousands of meters. Various exotic pine trees grew on the cliffs. These pines were incredibly resilient, taking root and thriving even in barren soils. But experienced hunters always understood. These peaks were not to be visited, for the pines on these peaks were not ordinary. They appeared tranquil as they rooted on the cliffs daily, but once any birds landed to rest, they would be swallowed instantly. These were man-eating pines. At this moment, a group of sacred individuals stood among the pine woods on the peak. The pines, capable of devouring birds and beasts, seemed subdued by this divine white radiance, standing quietly like trees, not daring to make a move. The meat-winged monsters of the moon god race. At this moment, these meat-winged monsters appeared human-like, with white feathers on their wings gently fluttering, peaceful and serene, like divine beings descending to earth, bringing nobility to the entire peak. Leading them was a two-winged male, handsome in appearance, with an upright stature. No flaws could be found externally, and every action, every expression was so perfectly harmonious, inviolably sacred. This two-winged male was named Carrie, the divine envoy of Changpan Valley. Behind him stood a group of young members of the moon god race, appearing about 17 or 18 years old, each exquisite and adorable, handsome boys and beautiful girls, with porcelain-white skin like crafted ceramics, each with a pair of not yet fully formed pure white small wings on their backs. The livestock from Changpan Valley have been released for the Mengdong hunt. Carrie spoke gently to these youths. All the youths looked down towards the forest below, where humans, referred to by them as livestock, were hunting to store food. This is your coming-of-age ceremony. You need to choose suitable livestock as your first offering to the Yellow Springs. You must hone your killing skills and combat capabilities through confrontation with the livestock. I won't help you. No one will. Everything is up to yourselves. Either kill the livestock as offerings, or be killed by the livestock and become offerings yourselves. Carrie wore a gentle smile, like a benevolent mentor teaching his students. These were newly adult meat-winged monsters, and upon reaching adulthood, each needed to hunt a human for their offering, regarded as a fundamental test. Which fool among you can't even defeat such lowly livestock as humans? Even if these inferior livestock raced attack together, they wouldn't be enough for me to kill. A haughty youth mocked. This newly adult handsome youth was named Rock. Among these novice meat-winged monsters, his strength was preeminent, already at the late meridian opening stage, and with plans to kill the strongest hunter among these humans today, using him as his first offering. Carrie looked at the young man and said affably, "Rock, I know you are the best student in this cohort, but you must not be careless. Although humans are livestock and kept in captivity, some are quite strong. After all, they are a special race. We've had many cases here where these livestock managed to kill our people during initiation rituals. Of course, even if you are killed, we won't intervene. If you can't defeat these captive livestock, then you are not fit to become a noble servant of the underworld. Your status would be no different than these livestock, only suitable to become sacrifices." Although Carrie was warning these students, his voice was still as pleasant as a spring breeze, convincing and soothing. To become a qualified meat-winged monster, one must learn to kill. Meat-winged monsters only aim for strength. In their eyes, only the strong survive, and those who are not strong enough are only fit to be sacrifices, even if they belong to their own race. Humans are the most suitable sacrificial offerings, also the ones most favored by the underworld. The first human you kill will be your first offering. The quality of the chosen offering determines how much strength you will gain from the underworld. So choosing the first offering must be done carefully. Carrie earnestly guided these adorable, newly adult juniors. "Can we only kill one?" A girl politely raised her hand to ask. Carrie nodded slightly. "Yes, only one can be killed because the humans kept in captivity here still serve a greater purpose. You must be aware of what's on their arms. Those things are very important. Right now, they haven't matured yet, so you can't harvest them recklessly." All the young boys and girls nodded slightly. They naturally understood what the moon print on the arms of those livestock below symbolized. You must choose the livestock whose aura most closely matches your own to be sacrificed. And when you kill the livestock, you must bring back the moon print on their wrist. Understood? Carrie asked gently. Understood. All the young boys and girls answered in unison, looking very obedient. Woof woof. On the rock at the edge of the cliff, an adorable little white dog sat obediently, barking, indicating that it too understood. Like a good baby, Xiaohei was with these adorable young boys and girls, all listening attentively to the lecture given by Carrie, the mentor. However, no one noticed Xiaohei's presence. Now then, let the adult hunt begin. I hope you all can find a good offering. Carrie smiled elegantly. Here, he had only 20-odd meat-winged monsters participating in the initiation ritual, but the group was not led solely by him. There were other mentors, and the number of meat-winged monsters far exceeded this. But among them, there were over 1,000 humans hunting in Mengdong, so the selection of offerings was more than sufficient. The young and stunning participants suddenly turned their passionate gazes below, sticking out their tongues to lick their lips, then eagerly jumped off the cliff. Whoosh! 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 Each one of them descended like immortals coming to earth, appearing extremely graceful in midair. Yet just before landing, every birdman began to sprout yellow lumps of flesh. Horns grew from their heads. Skin became grotesquely ugly. Even the feathers on their tiny wings turned into flesh, as if they had been roasted. In the blink of an eye, all the adorable little fairies and elf children transformed into ferocious meat-winged monsters, cackling monstrously, immediately dispersing toward their offerings. Boom! A burst of explosive fist wind spread out, shredding the falling leaves in the air. Jiang Shan was fiercely fighting a meridian opening stage earth bear, his clothes torn, with several wounds bleeding profusely, surrounded by other hunters, all gripping their spears nervously, wanting to help, but lacking the strength to join such a fight. Xiao Hozi, quickly shoot it. Help your dad, Jiang Chuan shouted. Although Jiang Chuan also had initial strength in the meridian opening, he was no match for the earth bear. He had been flung away earlier, his arm directly fractured, losing combat ability. Xiang Beifei symbolically shot an arrow, which grazed Jiang Shan's clothing, embedding in a nearby tree trunk. Jiang Chuan inhaled sharply. Xiao Hozi, where are you aiming? Their fighting speed is too fast. I can't pin down the target. Xiang Beifei shook his head. He didn't help, instead letting Jiang Shan handle the earth bear by himself. Regarding the battle on site and the capability of both sides, he had a clearer understanding than anyone else. If Jiang Shan was still bound by the moon print as before, he would likely have been killed by the Earth Bear in a few moves. But the current Jiang Shan was different. He already knew he had lost the moonprint, and he was aware of the changes in himself. Without the influence of the moonprint goo worm, Jiang Shan's strength had improved significantly. Xiang Beifei had to let Jiang Shan comprehend just how strong he was without the moonprint. Swipe. The Earth Bear's sharp claws gleamed with black light, its savage paws incredibly terrifying, lunging at Jiang Shan. The Earth Bear extremely brutal. A single blow could shatter large rocks. Jiang Shan couldn't dodge in time and was struck on the chest. The sound of ribs breaking echoing, blood streaming again. However, he didn't endure the hit for nothing. He kicked back at the Earth Bear's shoulder, tumbling in the air, then landed behind the Earth Bear, drew a sharp bone blade dagger from his waist, and thrust it backward, stabbing into the Earth Bear's rear neck. The back of the neck is exactly the weakest part of the Earth Bear's body. After being pierced, the Earth Bear's body trembled slightly, and blood spurted out. However, the Earth Bear did not immediately die. It roared in pain and turned around abruptly, about to pounce on Jiang Shan. But Jiang Shan reached down to pick up the spear on the ground, and with a sudden thrust in the air, it made a sharp whooshing sound. The sharp spear tip, shimmering with a cold light, penetrated the mouth of the Earth Bear, directly boring a hole through its head. Boom! The Earth Bear's body swayed twice, collapsed to the ground, raising a cloud of dust, and lost its vitality. Great! Sixth brother is still the best. The captain's strength is getting more and more formidable. He must have trained to the full moon. The hunters, seeing Jiang Shan had dealt with the Earth Bear, finally breathed a sigh of relief in unison. At the same time, they were very impressed with Jiang Shan's capabilities. The Earth Bear was truly formidable, and they did not know how to go up and help earlier. Fortunately, Jiang Shan had superior skills. Jiang Shan panted heavily, sat on the ground, and looked at his wounds. But he did not feel the joy of having killed such a mighty opponent. Instead, he became very sullen. The injuries are quite severe. Xiang Beifei walked over and took out a hunter's staple hemostatic herb from his waist and applied it to Jiang Shan. It's fine as long as I don't die. Jiang Shan was, after all, an experienced hunter, and getting injured while hunting was nothing out of the ordinary. As long as he wasn't dead, he could grit his teeth and endure it. Actually, he knew he was seriously injured. Defeating the Earth Bear was one thing, but getting injured himself was another. That was a Pyrrhic victory. He had just broken 2 ribs, and his body was flayed by the bear's claws, with some wounds deep enough to see white bone fragments. Such injuries were really too severe, and based on past experience, he would probably have to lie in bed for half a month to recover. But for some reason, he suddenly discovered that the power in his body was surging, as if he could control this power to repair the injuries on his body, which was very strange. Because in the past, when he had the moonprint, his power always came from the moonprint, and it was very difficult for him to control the power of the moonprint, let alone use it to heal injuries. He could only rely on his body's recuperation to recover from injuries. But this time, it seemed he could use this power to heal his wounds and speed up the healing of his injuries. Can my internal power actually assist in healing? Jiang Shan was very surprised. He didn't know that the power he cultivated within was spiritual power, nor did he know that spiritual power could be used to heal injuries. The more he used his internal power, the more he realized that the existence of the moonprint was a redundant burden for humans. Without the moonprint, humans could freely control their internal power, benefiting themselves in all aspects. But with the moonprint, one's internal power would be devoured by the moonprint, requiring its consent to use the power. This discovery made Jiang Shan increasingly uneasy, because whether it was the changes in Xiao Houzi or his own changes, more and more evidence showed that the moonprint was harmful to humans, and that without the moonprint they were their true selves. Could it be that the protection of the moonprint is just a lie? After this thought occurred to Jiang Shan, he started to breathe heavily and anxiously. He was now controlling that spiritual power, unsure whether to use it to heal his injuries. Xiang Beifei didn't ask more questions, just focused on tending to Jiang Shan's wounds. He used Elder Luo's leisure system to boost his mind-reading technique to 99.99, knowing clearly what was on Jiang Shan's mind. He could perceive the changes in Jiang Shan's internal power, and Jiang Shan had already begun to learn to control his own spiritual power. He was just temporarily scared of this suddenly acquired ability, because to Jiang Shan, this was challenging the truth. It's like in the era before Xiang Beifei transmigrated, when everyone firmly believed the Earth was the center of the world. If one day someone proposed that the Earth orbits the Sun, the impact on the thought cognition of that era was very strong, and the first to propose this idea would be sent to the gallows by the public. And Jiang Shan was in such a situation now. He discovered that his firm belief in the protection of the moonprint was actually false, equivalent to him questioning the divine lord he had long revered and the worldview he understood. Xiao Houzi lost the moonprint and was deemed ominous. If Jiang Shan dared to proclaim to the people of Changpan Valley that the moonprint is a lie, he would definitely become the target of public criticism and be executed with the charge of blaspheming the divine lord. Jiang Shan's breathing was heavy, not knowing how to handle this situation, and even his internal spiritual power was in turmoil. He couldn't help but glance at Xiang Beifei, focusing on Xiang Beifei's wrist, where a scab covered what used to be the location of the moonprint, his expression growing stranger and stranger. "Captain, why are you still down after killing the earth bear? This earth bear is so fat. The bear skin is great for winter. You should be happy." Jiang Song, dragging the earth bear, grinned widely with a crooked mouth. "Do your work properly? Why are you laughing? Can you be happy while injured?" On the other side, an injured Jiang Chuan glared at Jiang Song and said, "Sixth brother, how is it? Are you badly hurt?" Jiang Shan wiped off his sweat, forcing himself to calm down, and then said, "I'm okay. How about you?" "Unlucky, got a fracture. Need to rest for a while." Jiang Chuan was trying to set his arm straight to prevent the bone from misaligning and worsening the injury, but in doing so, he was gritting his teeth in pain. Seeing Jiang Chuan injured, Jiang Shan, as an elder brother, was somewhat anxious. He suddenly thought, since his internal power could be used to heal his own wounds, could it also be used to help Jiang Chuan heal? He wasn't too sure because in the past, with the moonprint, there was no way to control their internal power, and wanting to use it to heal others was a pipe dream. "Don't move. Let me take a look." Jiang Shan struggled to move over to Jiang Chuan, pulled over Jiang Chuan's arm, and saw several deep cuts and many abrasions on Jiang Chuan's arm. He chose a relatively shallow abrasion, attempted to channel his internal power, and gradually spread it over his palm, then slowly infused it into Jiang Chuan's wound. "Sixth brother, what are you doing? These wounds are no big deal. When we get back, I'll smear some mud from the herbal field, and it'll be fine," Jiang Chuan said. "Don't talk." Jiang Shan focused intently on observing his palm. His palm emitted a slight wave, exuding a faint blue light. The blue light landed on Jiang Chuan's wound, which began to stop bleeding and healed at a visibly rapid pace. Jiang Shan was increasingly surprised. Could his spiritual power really heal others? Although what he healed was only a minor abrasion, the fact was he did it. And none of this had ever been mentioned by those winged divine envoys who preached the path of the divine lord at Changpan Valley. Those divine envoys only ever said that human strength was given by the moonprint, and the disappearance of the moonprint meant humans would revert to a lower species, and the moonprint was a blessing to humans. But now, Jiang Shan found that this was not the case. After losing the moonprint, he became stronger, could freely control his power, and could use it to help others. Jiang Shan began to introspect, his gaze gradually becoming determined. He must figure this out. If the moonprint truly is a lie, he refuses to remain deceived. "Huh? Sixth brother, what's up with your palm? Why is it like ice and glowing?" Jiang Chuan, being a rough man, initially thought Jiang Shan was going to bandage his wound, but noticed Jiang Shan had no herbs in hand. Looking closer, he found that the abrasion on his arm seemed to have healed unknowingly and was immediately astonished. "How did this wound heal? Sixth brother, how did you do it? Seems like I have acquired some strange power within me." Jiang Shan hesitated. Power within? Could it be granted by the Divine Lord? Is it the protection of the Divine Lord? It's not the protection of the Divine Lord. It's unrelated to the Divine Lord. Jiang Shan snapped. All the hunters paused their tasks, staring at Jiang Shan in shock. Such words were not welcomed. Jiang Shan realized his gaffe and said, "Never mind that. Just make sure to secure the Earth Bear." He waved his hand, concealing his emotions. Xiang Beifei knew that Jiang Shan's faith in the Divine Lord had been shaken, but he didn't say much. Instead, he continued applying medicine to Jiang Shan, secretly infusing some spiritual power into the herbs. The moment the herbs touched the wound, it began to heal immediately. Of course, he didn't fully heal it. In any case, he had to leave a slight skin wound to avoid raising suspicion. But at this moment, Xiang Beifei suddenly frowned. A faint sound of air currents wafted through the forest, and leaves from all directions seemed to be swayed by something. Ordinary hunters wouldn't pay attention to these sounds, but Xiang Beifei knew very well. He knew something was coming. Whoosh! Suddenly, from behind a tree, an ugly meat-winged monster leaped out, rushing at a hunter who was dealing with the corpse of a bear. Its speed was at its peak, and the hunter couldn't react at all. The speed of the meat-winged monster was incredibly fast, at least quicker than the reaction speed of these hunters. It would be terribly easy for them to hunt humans in the forest. The hunter was completely unaware of what was charging at him from behind. Swoosh! Xiang Beifei had long prepared his bow and arrow. The moment the meat-winged monster pounced, the arrow was already released. Thunk! The arrow instantly pierced through the head of the meat-winged monster. The immense inertia drove the monster backward, pinning it directly to the tree trunk. What is that? Only upon hearing the commotion did the hunter react. Turning around, he found a meat-winged monster bearing its fangs ferociously against the trunk, glaring at him viciously. He screamed immediately, falling to the ground in terror, scooting backward. What's going on? What's going on? The other hunters raised their heads, looking toward him as they heard the noise. Underworld Phantom. The hunter pointed at the tree trunk in horror. Underworld Phantom. All hunters' faces changed drastically. Following his guidance, they indeed saw a meat-winged monster on the tree trunk. Everyone shuddered involuntarily at the sight of this monster, a fear deeply rooted in their souls. Every year, countless members of the human race die at the hands of the meat-winged monsters, so the sight of one inevitably triggered a reflexive terror and retreat. Don't panic. Gather together, take up weapons, and prepare to defend. Jiang Shan shouted loudly. Every hunter scrambled to draw the bone knives from their waists. However, some hunters' bone blades were still stuck in the bear's body, and they couldn't pull them out in time. Others picked up rocks from the ground to make do. But upon closer inspection, they realized that the meat-winged monster wasn't moving, its mouth still open, with a hint of surprise in its eyes. They quickly noticed an arrow embedded in the monster's forehead, right between its brows, killing it with a single shot. It's dead. The hunters came to their senses, looking around and saw Xiang Beifei still holding a bow. Xiao Hozi, is it you who shot the underworld phantom dead? Each one was incredibly shocked. Xiao Hozi had actually killed the ferocious underworld phantom with a single arrow. How could this be possible? In the past, they had only managed to kill an underworld phantom by joint efforts of several strong hunters from the village, sacrificing an average of a dozen lives to possibly kill just one underworld phantom. Yet Xiao Hozi had done it with a single arrow. And when no one else had noticed, Xiao Hozi, how are you able to react so quickly? Jiang Chuan asked in shock. Don't ask for now. Gather around quickly. These meat-winged monsters are not alone. Xiang Beifei didn't answer, but rapidly applied the revert to simplicity ability on Jiang Chuan and Jiang Shan, quickly restoring their wounds. Jiang Shan and Jiang Chuan quickly propped themselves up from the ground. They intended to endure the pain caused by their injuries to stand, but they soon realized that their bodies felt light, the imagined pain absent, and instead felt as if nothing had happened. What's happening to my arm? Jiang Chuan was utterly astonished. Chuan, don't dawdle, move quickly. Jiang Shan also realized the sudden recovery from his injuries, but he remained more composed than Jiang Chuan. He swiftly picked up a spear from the ground, watching his surroundings with caution. Yet his gaze unintentionally shifted towards Xiang Beifei, revealing a trace of suspicion, as if he had realized something. All hunters immediately formed a circle, distancing themselves from the meat-winged monster pinned to the tree. After being slain, the monster's body seemed to transform, quickly melting like mud, turning into a puddle of yellow spring water on the ground. It's dead. This underworld phantom is truly dead. Seeing the meat-winged monster dissolve into yellow water, the hunters finally let out a breath, seemingly familiar with this occurrence. This time it was Xiang Beifei who was surprised. He remembered that even in death, the meat-winged monster wouldn't truly die, as it would be consumed by the yellow spring water and become an underworld creature. But he hadn't expected that this monster would dissolve directly into a puddle of yellow spring water. However, Xiaohe had just been on the cliff, attentively listening to Carrie and the meat-winged monster's conversation, and relayed the content to Xiang Beifei. He knew these meat-winged monsters came to hunt humans as their first offering. Could it mean they hadn't acquired the underworld's power yet? At this moment, the yellow spring water on the ground suddenly moved. It was like a slick puddle of butter, flowing along the grooves of the ground without soaking into the soil, its destination unknown. Where will it flow to? Xiang Beifei asked, puzzled. The evil spirits of the yellow spring turn into yellow spring water after death. It is said they return to the embrace of the yellow spring. Jiang Shan replied in a deep voice. Where is the embrace of the yellow spring? Xiang Beifei's spirits lifted. His purpose here was to find the source of the netherworld and use the steel to deal with the yellow spring. Jiang Shan shook his head. I don't know. Based on our understanding, these things seek a water source on their own and disappear into it. This area had several streams. Could it be that the yellow spring creatures returned to the source of the netherworld through underground currents? Xiang Beifei discreetly waved his hand, and a small speck of breath soil shot out from under his clothes, quietly merging into the pool of yellow spring water. Breath soil was his positioning divine artifact, so he should be able to find the source of the netherworld this way. It seems the evil spirits of the yellow spring have awakened. We can't scatter anymore, we need to be careful. Jiang Shan cautiously scanned the surroundings, searching for traces of other yellow spring evil spirits. Seeing no second evil spirit, he commanded everyone to quickly handle the corpse of the great bear. Originally, they intended to take the bear's entire carcass, but with a yellow spring evil spirit appearing, a second might emerge. They simply skinned it, cut out some tender meat, and quickly left the area. Jiang Shan led the team eastward for about 10 miles before stopping at their designated hunting cave. We can't go back to that area we were in earlier. Jiang Shan indicated for the hunters to put their prey into the hunting cave, along with the bone-winged horse from before. After processing it, he seriously said, there should be quite a few yellow spring evil spirits awakening in the forest now. We must pray not to encounter them. If we do, we must run immediately. I think we shouldn't run from these meat-winged monsters, Xiang Beifei said. Jiang Shan furrowed his brow slightly. We can't defeat these yellow spring evil spirits. It would take at least 10 people as strong as 6 bro to kill one, Jiang Chuan said. No, Xiaohe managed to shoot one dead. It shows that if we seize the opportunity, the yellow spring evil spirits aren't invincible. Next to them, Jiang Song watched with admiration at the bow in Xiang Beifei's hands. He also had a bow, but the difference between Xiaohe's shots and his was like night and day. Jiang Shan was silent for a moment, then asked, Xiaohe, what do you think we should do? Everyone looked at Xiaohe. Right now, his archery skills were their only hope against the yellow spring evil spirits. Facing these yellow spring evil spirits, we can't just sit and wait for death, Xiang Beifei said. These meat-winged monsters have weaknesses. They're not as strong as we imagined, and we need to take the initiative to attack. Xiaohe, we don't have archery skills like yours. Your archery seems to surpass all of us, Jiang Shan said hesitantly. Xiang Beifei fiddled with the ordinary-looking bow in his hands and said, "Do you know why I was able to shoot that meat-winged monster dead?" Everyone exchanged glances. "Why?" someone asked. "Before I shot it, I had no idea it was a yellow spring evil spirit. In my eyes, it was just a meat-winged monster, no different from an ordinary desolate beast," Xiang Beifei said. "You thought it was just an ordinary desolate beast?" All the hunters were shocked because, in their eyes, yellow spring evil spirits were very different from other desolate beasts. These evil spirits were immensely powerful, quite intelligent, and even capable of mocking humans verbally. Definitely not the same as ordinary desolate beasts. The more fear you have of it, the more it will cause panic among you, making it impossible to defeat. If you simply regard it as an ugly desolate beast, it won't be as powerful, Xiang Beifei stated. The meat-winged monsters played the part of yellow spring evil spirits to attack humans, creating an illusion in the people of Changpan Valley that these spirits were undefeatable evil beings. At the same time, they impersonated sages to save humans, telling them they alone could defeat the yellow spring evil spirits. They have a tight grip on the human thoughts in Changpan Valley, so much so that when many hunters first see the wraiths of the netherworld, their immediate reaction is not to fight, but to flee in panic, hoping for the blessing of the Divine Lord. Little do they know, whether it's the Divine Lord or the wraiths of the netherworld, they are all the same kind of meat-winged monster. These monsters imprint the ideas they want to see onto the thoughts of the human race, making humans unconsciously grasped by their lifeblood. Xiang Beifei must make these humans understand the truth about the meat-winged monsters and the moon god. The hunters were also very skeptical, wanting to refute, but unable to find a point of rebuttal, because Xiao Houzi actually managed to kill a netherworld wraith with a single arrow, giving him the confidence to say these words. Jiang Shan's mind was racing. Due to the loss of the moonprint, he was the one who could most understand Xiang Beifei's words among these people. In the past, it took 10 of him to be a match for a meat-winged monster, but perhaps now it was different. Perhaps he might even be able to kill a meat-winged monster himself. Jiang Shan tightened his fist. Xiao Houzi is right, we must try. The meat-winged monsters have been slaughtering us humans. We absolutely cannot sit and wait for death. The other hunters also recalled the various atrocities of the meat-winged monsters in the past, and they harbored an intense hatred for them. Many of their childhood friends and relatives fell at the hands of these monsters. When have they not thought of revenge? Now, Xiao Houzi's words gave them some motivation. That's right, we can't just sit and wait to die. If we run, we'll still die. But fighting might give us a slim chance of survival. Xiao Houzi, tell us, how do we fight back? A hunter asked loudly. It's very simple. Pick up your bows and arrows. Xiang Beifei calmly strung his bow, saying, let's hunt those meat-winged monsters that wish to grow up together. The meat-winged monsters hunted humans as prey, so Xiang Beifei would in turn hunt these arrogant creatures. In the dense forest, a squad of hunters was desperately running for their lives. This was a group led by Jiang Dai, their faces filled with terror, many even bearing wounds, their clothes scratched by branches, wounds bleeding profusely, but they couldn't care less about their injuries, only thinking of quickly shaking off those creatures behind them. Behind these hunters, 3 meat-winged monsters were following at a not-too-rushed pace. They seemed to have targeted this squad, but did not attack immediately, instead choosing their target, as if deciding which human would serve as their first nether offering. Captain, they're catching up! A hunter shouted in fear towards Jiang Dai. Jiang Dai's expression was clearly very flustered, but as the leader, he didn't think about running first. Instead, he stopped and shouted, "You guys go first! Go! Go! I'll hold them off." He grabbed a hunter at the back, pushing him forward, then turned around and threw the spear in his hand towards one of the meat-winged monsters. His strength was considered the strongest among this group of hunters, and the thrown spear made a sharp whistling sound, piercing through a branch, swiftly stabbing towards one of the meat-winged monsters. However, the meat-winged monster let out a chilling laugh, watching the spear coming straight at it, and extended its wart-covered hand to easily catch the spear. This human beast is strong. It's a perfect offering. It's mine. It extended its long scarlet tongue to lick its lips, then let out a sinister smile, flapping the wings on its back, flipping its whole body over a protruding branch like a piece of paper. Then threw the spear back at Jiang Dai. Whoosh! This meat-winged monster's strength was several times greater than Jiang Dai's. The spear sped faster and fiercer, aiming straight for Jiang Dai's heart. Its attack merciless, leaving no room for escape. Jiang Dai saw the spear coming at him, was shocked, immediately dove to the side. He was already very fast, but still didn't completely dodge. The spear thunked into his thigh, pinning him to the ground. Ah! Jiang Dai let out a painful cry. Clutching his leg, he fell to the ground. "Captain!" The hunters in front shouted in alarm. "Go! Don't mind me! Go!" Jiang Dai gritted his teeth trying to pull the spear out, but the spear had pierced through his thigh, pinned tightly, impossible to extract. Bang! The meat-winged monster landed in front of Jiang Dai, revealing a grim smile. To still be able to dodge, has some skill. Such an offering is even better. Jiang Dai looked at the meat-winged monster with a mix of shock and anger, desperately trying to pull out the spear. But as soon as he did, blood spilled from the wound, causing him to sweat coldly from the pain. Their spear tips were coated with neurotoxins extracted from desolate beasts to combat them. But these toxins also had a significant impact on themselves. He felt like 1,000 ants were gnawing at his leg, causing it to tremble uncontrollably. "It's over." In panic, Jiang Dai picked up the bow and arrows from the ground and shot at the meat-winged monster. However, the monster didn't dodge, just flicking its meat wings to deflect the arrow. "Is that all you've got? This coming-of-age ceremony is way too easy." The meat-winged monster sneered at Jiang Dai, unfazed by any of his attacks. Jiang Dai was engulfed in deep despair, watching helplessly as the meat-winged monster walked up to him, reached out, grabbed the spear stuck in his leg, and then yanked it out. Ah! Jiang Dai clutched his thigh in pain, sweat streaming down from the agony. His entire body faltered, trying to run, but his leg wouldn't respond. He could only desperately grab stones on the ground, dragging his crippled leg backward. The funeral of adulthood from the underworld requires your heart to be a part of it. Death is not your end. You members of the human race can continue being the walking dead in the underworld. Don't worry. Death is quite simple for you. The meat-winged monster sneered maliciously, thrusting the spear toward Jiang Dai. Jiang Dai watched in horror as the blood-stained spear aimed for his chest, realizing he probably wouldn't survive this ordeal. But just then, a sharp whistling sound cut through the air. An arrow pierced through the leaves like lightning, shooting swiftly and nailing itself into the meat-winged monster's forehead. Bang! The powerful force flung the meat-winged monster's body, sending it tumbling sideways with its head pinned to the ground. The sinister smile was still plastered on the meat-winged monster's face, but its eyes had already stopped moving. What? Jiang Dai had resigned to his fate, but was stunned to see the meat-winged monster about to kill him get nailed to the ground by an arrow through its forehead. He quickly turned his head to see who had shot the arrow but was dumbstruck when he saw the shooter. Indeed, death is quite simple for you. Xiang Beifei stood on a rock not far behind Jiang Dai, apathetically looking at the dead meat-winged monster. Jiang Dai gasped in shock. It's him. How could it be Xiao Houzi? Jiang Dai was completely shocked. In the morning before heading out to hunt, he held deep resentment toward Xiao Houzi, who had lost the moonprint, and considered him a soon-to-be fallen underworld evil spirit, desecrating the divine lord and deserving to be banished from the village. Who would have thought that, in the critical moment, it was Xiao Houzi who saved him? At this moment, Jiang Dai's heart surged with turmoil, momentarily at a loss for words, because the one who killed the underworld evil spirit was the same Xiao Houzi he had viewed as a soon-to-be fallen underworld evil spirit. Xiang Beifei merely glanced at Jiang Dai without much concern, and then shifted his gaze to the other two meat-winged monsters on the tree branch. The two meat-winged monsters were visibly taken aback, seeing Xiang Beifei shoot one of their companions dead with an arrow. This lowly livestock actually killed Luan. They exchanged glances, their ugly faces furrowing. Luan was the meat-winged monster that Xiang Beifei had shot. Such a turn of events was something these two monsters hadn't anticipated. However, they seemed rather composed, not grieving over their companion's death. They had been forewarned by Carrie that the human race still had the power to resist them. In their eyes, being killed by these human race livestock only proved that Lewin wasn't worthy of being a servant of the underworld. Meanwhile, Jiang Shan and Jiang Chuan, the brothers, rushed in from behind, accompanied by others wielding bows and arrows, aiming at the remaining meat-winged monsters. "Are you okay?" Jiang Shan stepped forward and helped Jiang Dai up.
No.
"No problem." Seeing Jiang Shan arrive, Jiang Dai felt an overwhelming sense of shame. Who would have thought his savior would be the very father and son he had excluded earlier that morning? Other hunters quickly came over, helping Jiang Dai to a rock at the back, taking out some hemostatic herbs they carried and doing some quick bandaging. Meanwhile, Jiang Shan and Jiang Chuan kept vigilant against the two meat-winged monsters still observing the scene. "Hee, it seems quite a few decent offerings have arrived. Chimu, we are quite lucky. They look good, more options for selection. Fei Ding, which one do you choose?" The meat-winged monster named Fei Ding scanned Jiang Shan, Jiang Chuan, and others with its pointed triangular eyes, and then landed its gaze on Xiang Beifei, the one who shot the arrow, saying gleefully, "That young man. I like challenges. He looks strong. Haha, Fei Ding, I'm afraid you can't handle him. Better let me have this offering." The meat-winged monster known as Chimu seemed also interested in Xiang Beifei, recognizing the prowess of someone who could take down Lewin with just one arrow. For them, the stronger the offering, the more potent the underworld power they could harness in the future. "No way. I laid eyes on him first. I want to toy with him thoroughly and make him my sacrifice." Fei Ding disagreed, and looked at Xiang Beifei with a sinister grin, having already considered Xiang Beifei as his prey. Chimu was not willing to give up either. He said, "How about we have a competition, like the hunting contest during Wagangzi and Jinai's coming-of-age ceremony last year? We can break the bones of this human one by one until he bleeds to death." The meat-winged monsters are extremely cruel. When they hunt humans, they don't just kill them simply. Sometimes, they even hold brutal competitions, devising various ways to torture these hunters of the human race to death. Since a meat-winged monster can only kill one sacrifice, in order to indulge themselves, they use all sorts of cruel methods to kill their chosen sacrifice. Cutting tendons, breaking bones, chopping off hands and feet to estimate death time, cutting major arteries for blood volume prediction, opening the chest to gamble on heart size. The cruel killing methods are countless. The humans selected as sacrifices die tragically every year. But for the meat-winged monsters, killing is a source of joy and they revel in it. "Great! I like this competition. I've always wanted to learn their coming-of-age methods. I remember humans have a total of 206 bones. We'll break his bones one by one and see on which number he dies. If it's odd, the sacrifice is yours. If even, the sacrifice is mine." Fei Ding's eyes lit up with fervor. "Agreed." Chimu laughed wickedly and said to Xiang Beifei, "Originally, you weren't necessarily our target, but you shouldn't try to be a hero. Remember, we are late-stage meridian opening strength, and you, this humble livestock, are overestimating yourself. It's like striking a stone with an egg provoking us." Whoosh! Without any hesitation, Xiang Beifei swiftly released an arrow, which turned into a blurred phantom, instantly reaching its target and hitting the horn on top of the meat-winged monster's head, breaking off its hard horn. "Ah!" Chimu screamed in disbelief as he touched his broken horn, from which yellowish blood spurted like a fountain, drenching his face. "Ah! You bastard! For a humble livestock, you dare!" Whoosh! Xiang Beifei quickly knocked another arrow, swiftly releasing it, hitting Chimu's left wing joint accurately. Crack! Chimu's left wing was directly shot off. "Ah!" Chimu screamed again, as he originally had two wings, but could never have imagined Xiang Beifei would shoot off his left wing so directly. This was intolerable for him, and he let out a piercing screech, his body instantly jumping high in a rage despite missing one wing. "You human livestock, Today I'll tear you limb from limb and make you understand the gap between us. Whoosh! Xiang Beifei released another arrow. Crack! Qi Mu's right meat wing was also shot off. His body, which was initially leaping in the air, tilted instantly, crashing down to the ground. Ah! How can you? Qi Mu screamed, having lost both wings and his horn. This was a tremendous humiliation for him. The previously fanatical Fei Ding was stunned. He never expected Xiang Beifei to shoot 3 successive arrows, reducing Qi Mu to such a miserable state. This superb archery terrified him. It was different from the ambush that took Luan's life earlier. This time, it was in front of them. These 2 newly adult meat-winged monsters were oblivious to the world and were arrogant with their meridian opening period strength, likely never dreaming of what kind of existence they had provoked in Xiang Beifei. He was someone who could kill even the late-stage flaming 6 wings of the heavenly connection. For someone in the meridian opening period, it's merely child's play. 3rd arrow, meat-winged monster, can you guess? How many arrows will it take for me to kill you? Odd? Or even? Xiang Beifei drew another arrow, aimed at Qi Mu, and asked very calmly, You! These words were the greatest insult to Qi Mu, who at first was betting with Fei Ding on how many bones of Xiang Beifei would break to cause his death. But now the one being questioned was Qi Mu itself. Meanwhile, on the human side, all hunters were awed by Xiang Beifei's terrifying archery skills, especially Jiang Dai, who was even more shocked after witnessing Xiao Houzi's incredible archery. Lowly humans, you deserve to die, Qi Mu shouted furiously, unwilling to be humiliated like this. He was a noble moon god, yet to be toyed with by livestock raised in Chongpan Valley was unbearable. Swish! A burst of yellow light exploded from Qi Mu's body, and he became extremely frenzied, his power continuously surging as he charged rapidly towards Xiang Beifei. Swoosh! Xiang Beifei fired the 4th arrow, which pierced through Qi Mu's left thigh. The immense force lifted Qi Mu off the ground, pinning his thigh firmly to it. Now it's an even number, Xiang Beifei declared. Ah! Qi Mu screamed again, nearly collapsing from the immense pain. He attempted to pull out the arrow, but found that the arrow pinning his thigh was impossible to remove. Swoosh! Xiang Beifei shot another arrow, which accurately pierced Qi Mu's right arm as he tried to pull out the other arrow, pinning it to his left leg and creating another bloody hole. It's become an odd number again. Xiang Beifei strung his bow again, staring at the meat-winged monster, and said, I'll give you a chance to choose how you die. Do you think you'll die on an odd count or an even count? Qi Mu was completely crushed, now feeling the fear just like Jiang Dai did when pinned by the spear. Terror filled his eyes, realizing he had provoked someone he shouldn't have. Lowly human livestock, you deserve to die. You deserve to die. You deserve to die. Qi Mu screamed madly. Within his race, torturing humans to death was an honor. But now it was he who was being tortured. Swoosh! Xiang Beifei's arrow struck Qi Mu precisely in the center of his forehead, abruptly stopping his screams. His eyes were wide open, full of disbelief and resentment. Dying at the hands of humans was his greatest shame. Turns out it's an even count death. Xiang Beifei muttered to himself and then shifted his gaze to Fei Ding. Fei Ding, meeting Xiang Beifei's eyes, couldn't help but shiver. He was panicking now, realizing that he and Qi Mu were evenly matched in strength. With Qi Mu being killed by Xiang Beifei with 6 arrows, he knew he had no chance of winning. Since when did the human race have such a powerful individual? Well shot. That's exactly how to fight back. Last year, I watched helplessly as De Zhuang's skull was split by these yellow spring evil spirits. They were so cruel, even took his brain. Jiang Chuan, choked with emotion, could hardly continue. De Zhuang was his childhood friend, who during Mengdong's hunt last year, stayed behind to protect the other hunters, ultimately tortured to death by the meat-wing monster in a cruel manner. Jiang Chuan witnessed De Zhuang's death, but being severely injured, could prevent nothing, carrying immense guilt. Until now, the memory remained vivid. Seeing Xiao Houzi kill the meat-winged monster, emulating their own cruel methods, was incredibly satisfying. Exactly. These Yellow Spring evil spirits deserve to be diced into 1,000 pieces. Many hunters hated the Yellow Spring evil spirits so much they were gnashing their teeth. They all knew someone who had been brutally murdered by the Yellow Spring evil spirits and held deep hatred, and Xiao Houzi undoubtedly let them vent their anger greatly. Just then, several whistling sounds suddenly came from the woods, as 7 or 8 yellow figures agilely flashed and jumped amongst the trees, landing around Fei Ding within mere breaths. What's going on? Fei Ding. I think I heard Qi Mu's screams. The ones who arrived were other meat-winged monsters, counting a total of 8. These meat-winged monsters were initially hunting other hunters but diverted upon hearing the screams from here. You've come at the right time. That despicable livestock killed Luan and Qi Mu. We must not let him go. Seeing fellow meat-winged monsters arrive, Fei Ding immediately gained confidence, looking at Xiang Beifei with more venomous eyes. With 8 more companions, dealing with Xiang Beifei was more than feasible. Luan and Qi Mu are dead? The leading meat-winged monster turned its cold gaze to the few arrows on the forest floor. Xiang Beifei's arrows were still stuck in the ground, but Qi Mu, who was killed by the arrows, had already turned into a pool of yellow spring water, starting to flow downward along the ground's grooves. Seeing the corpse water of their companion, the 8 arriving meat-winged monsters immediately became vicious in their gaze. Fei Ding, who shot Qi Mu? It was him. Fei Ding viciously pointed at Xiang Beifei. All the meat-winged monsters turned their gaze towards Xiang Beifei. Is that human really that strong? I thought the stronger the humans, the older they tend to be. I didn't know his archery was so astounding. He killed Luan with 1 arrow and then used 6 arrows to kill Qi Mu. Tuohe, you should be careful. I feel that this human race beast strength isn't inferior to Rock. Fei Ding said. Does he deserve to be compared with Rock? The meat-winged monster called Tuohe sneered. Comparing this lowly being to Rock feels like an insult to Rock. He's a genius personally favored by Lord Qi back then. Another meat-winged monster looked at Xiang Beifei with disdain. Rock is recognized as the strongest of the young generation among those participating in the coming-of-age ceremony, with immense strength. It's said that he has a natural affinity with the aura of the Yellow Spring and is the most valued moon god at present. Back then, the Flaming Six Wings personally acknowledged Rock, believing Rock most likely to grow 6 or even 8 wings, becoming the legendary noble divine servant. Who is the Flaming Six Wings? A master at the late stages of the heavenly connection. Also one of the 12 divine envoys accompanying the eternal night demon king. Possessing 6 pairs of wings and having strength recognized by the Yellow Spring. In the eyes of these newly matured meat-winged monsters, to gain the appreciation of the Flaming Six Wings is a supreme honor. As for this ignorant human race boy before them, where does he get the confidence to be compared with Rock? Don't even speak of Rock. I just don't think much of that beast over there. So I will teach this guy a lesson myself. Tuohe stepped forward, rubbing his fists, looking at Xiang Beifei with contempt. No, we must go together. This lowly human really has some tricks, Fei Ding whispered. Fei Ding, if you're too weak, just watch from the sidelines. At the end of the day, the human race are just beasts. What waves can they make? Tuohe said. Fei Ding was quite annoyed by the ridicule, but anger is one thing. He thought that with so many companions present, this human race was truly doomed. There are so many sacrifices here. They all seem of good quality. You all may choose for yourselves. Tuohe continued. The other meat-winged monsters immediately began to leap swiftly among the branches. These 9 meat-winged monsters jumped as agile as monkeys, flapping their wings and cackling, encircling nearly 50 hunters on the ground. The surrounded hunters also became uneasy. Although they had a large number, the problem was that each of the 9 Yellow Spring demons was more powerful than them. To them, every Yellow Spring demon was an extremely formidable existence, nearly impossible to defeat. This is troublesome. So many Yellow Spring demons, what should we do? Jiang Chuan asked nervously. It wasn't the first time he had seen so many Yellow Spring demons, but every time he saw so many of them gathered, It brought back some painful memories, as he knew too many friends who had died at the hands of the Yellow Spring demons, leaving a lingering shadow on his heart. Stick together and resist in unison. Jiang Shan's heart was also pounding, but he still directed the hunters and also looked towards Xiao Houzi. When Xiang Beifei saw so many meat-winged monsters appear, his eyes brightened. He originally thought of seeking them out one by one, not expecting them to flock together, making it much simpler. Don't panic. Pick up your bows and arrows. They can handle them, Xiang Beifei said. Everyone knocked their bows and arrows, nervously watching the Yellow Spring demons. However, these Yellow Spring demons jumped around very quickly, and even the most experienced hunter couldn't hit those moving targets, especially with the crisscrossing branches here that greatly obstructed their aim. Xiao Houzi, the Yellow Spring demons are too nimble. We can't aim accurately, Jiang Chuan said anxiously. Calm down. Take a deep breath. As long as you focus your attention on the target, you can definitely hit them. After Xiang Beifei finished speaking, he turned to Jiang Shan and said, You are the leader of our team of hunters. You have to set an example. You have the responsibility to protect all of us. I don't know if I can hit them. Jiang Shan was also uncertain. Although his archery was good, it was definitely not as trusty as Xiang Beifei's unfailing accuracy, especially when facing the Yellow Spring demons this time. You can do it. Calculate the movement trajectory of these meat-winged monsters. Have a clear understanding of their speed. Then anticipate their next move's position to hit them, Xiang Beifei said in a solemn tone. Jiang Shan took a deep breath. With Xiao Houzi not showing fear, he couldn't retreat either. If he got scared, then the lives of the other hunters would also be at risk. His eyes inadvertently caught sight of his wrist. Xiao Houzi without a moonprint seemed like a different person, and now he also lost his moonprint, clearly feeling that his power had changed as well. At this moment he had to stand out. Jiang Shan tried hard to calm himself. He stopped being flustered. His focus became very concentrated, leaving only those meat-winged monsters in his eyes. Meanwhile, a meat-winged monster had already come within his shooting range. The meat-winged monster is not invincible. Even Xiao Houzi can hit it. Jiang Shan silently cautioned himself, aiming at the meat-winged monster charging at the forefront, constantly adjusting the direction of his arrow. He was continuously calculating the movements of the meat-winged monster, from its speed to the distance of each leap, then estimating the flight time required for his arrow to hit it. He concentrated all the spiritual power within his body, gathering it into his palm, then channeling it onto the arrow in his hand. The arrowhead on the string was glowing with a bright white light. At this moment, the meat-winged monster seemed to have chosen its sacrificial target and suddenly pounced towards a hunter on the outermost perimeter. Swoosh! Jiang Shan had already anticipated the actions of the meat-winged monster. At a precarious moment, the arrow in his hand shot off the string. The arrow traced a blur through the air, propelled by the formidable power of the meridian opening phase, speeding towards the meat-winged monster. The meat-winged monster had never regarded the human race as a threat, nor did it expect Jiang Shan to suddenly shoot an arrow. It was only of meridian opening initial phase strength, and by the time it reacted, it was too late. A spirit power-infused arrow pierced through the right wing of the meat-winged monster, the powerful force pinning it directly to a branch. Ah! Damn beast! You actually wounded me! The meat-winged monster let out a shrill cry, apparently shocked that it was hit. How is that possible? The other meat-winged monsters, previously acting arrogantly, were also stunned, especially Tuahi, the leader of the meat-winged monsters, who was quite surprised to see its companion truly hit. I warned you all long ago. Their archery is incredibly accurate, Fei Ding said coldly. Tuahi gazed darkly at Jiang Shan, understanding that the deaths of Luin and Qimu were likely not accidental. Believing Fei Ding's words, his expression immediately darkened. It's a hit! Jiang Shan was astonished in his heart. He actually hit the Netherworld spirit. In the past, when facing the Netherworld spirits, they had considered using bows and arrows to kill these spirits, but the problem was that they never hit. When facing the Netherworld spirits, they always felt as if they couldn't exert themselves. This was the first time Jiang Shan hit a netherworld spirit. Watching the netherworld spirit get hit in the wing by his force-covered arrow gave Jiang Shan a huge boost of confidence. Realizing that the netherworld spirits were not invincible, he couldn't help but think about the reason he hit the netherworld spirit. In previous years, when encountering the spirits, his arm still bore the moonprint, and his powers had to be forced out from the moonprint, making them difficult to control. When facing the spirits, his powers always misaligned. However, now that he suddenly no longer had the moonprint and could freely control the power within himself, he could shoot wherever he wanted. This feeling was extremely satisfying. He originally thought it was because his skills were insufficient, which led to his inability to deal with the spirits, but now he realized that this was not the case. It was as if the moonprint deliberately prevented him from hitting the spirits, severely hampering his abilities. However, since the moon god was clearly at odds with the netherworld spirits, logically speaking, the moonprint shouldn't act this way. Why is this? In the brief moments after shooting the meat-winged monster, countless thoughts flashed through Jiang Shan's mind, but he couldn't figure it out. If only he understood that the moon god was the netherworld spirit, this issue would be easy to comprehend. The moonprint and the netherworld spirits both originate from the moon god race. The moonprint, parasitic on human arms, would never allow humans to harm its own kind. Great shot! Sixth brother. Jiang Chuan and the other hunters saw their captain, Jiang Shan, also hit the netherworld spirit and felt invigorated, realizing that not only Xiao Houzi could hit the spirits, but even Jiang Shan could. Truly like father, like son. Such impressive archery skills. The other hunters praised as well. Seeing Xiao Houzi and Jiang Shan hit the spirits gave them hope, greatly boosting their morale. It's not just us. You all can hit them too, Xiang Beifei said in a deep voice. Wanting to eliminate these yellow spring spirits is just a thought for Xiang Beifei. However, this time Xiang Beifei didn't take action immediately. He needs to let the hunters of Changpan Valley understand that yellow spring spirits are not invincible, to help them build self-confidence and rid them of the fear of yellow spring spirits, especially since most of the hunters here are not fundamentally weaker than these meat-winged monsters. Take Jiang Shan, who lost his moonprint. If he were to truly fight the meat-winged monsters, he could definitely kill one alone. But because the moonprint has constrained them for too long, they've never fought these monsters, and over time, even Jiang Shan doesn't know he could defeat a just-matured meat-winged monster. Xiang Beifei has the ability to save the humans of Changpan Valley, to take them all away, but that would only treat the symptoms, not the root cause. Because here, humans are wantonly slaughtered by the moon god, yet they still revere the moon god. If their mindset doesn't change, then even if they are rescued, it would be useless and they might even accuse Xiang Beifei of blaspheming the Divine Lord. Xiang Beifei hopes even more that the humans here can see the truth step by step. So this hunt by Meng Dong, in the eyes of the meat-winged monsters, is their coming-of-age ceremony. But in Xiang Beifei's view, it is the awakening ceremony for these hunters. We can too. That's right. We can do it and so can you. The reason you can't hit them is because you've feared these meat-winged monsters for too long. But actually, you are not weaker than these ugly creatures. You can only defeat them by conquering your fear within. As Xiang Beifei spoke, a silent aura spread from him, and the power respected as a criterion quickly covered all the hunters, climbing onto each hunter's wrist and masking the moon print on their arms. Respected as a criterion within Xiang Beifei's domain, any rules are determined by Xiang Beifei. This means that, under Xiang Beifei's restrictions, all moonprints will be temporarily invalid, and the powers devoured by the moonprints will temporarily return to the hunters' bodies. Defeat the fear within yourself to defeat them? Many hunters were taken aback by Xiang Beifei's words, but soon realized something. They have known the terror of yellow spring spirits since childhood, and this fear is ingrained in their bones. However, Xiao Houzi lost his memory. He doesn't even know what yellow spring spirits are, so he can't be afraid. Is this why he can shoot and kill yellow spring spirits? And now Jiang Shan is also able to hit yellow spring spirits, because he must have conquered his inner fear first. Thinking this way, all the hunters were filled with fighting spirit. That's right. Fear will only hasten our demise. Xiao Houzi is right. We must overcome the fear within us. Jiang Chuan's gaze also became firm, seeing that his brother and nephew could overcome their inner fears. How could he fall behind? At this moment, he felt strength fill his entire body. Even his perception and sense of smell became much sharper. It seemed he could control the power within him as well. With just a thought, he gathered his power onto the arrow. Meanwhile, Tuahi's side was also enraged by the meat-winged monsters, yelling, "Kill! Kill these human livestock! Kill!" All the meat-winged monsters roared furiously, launching an attack from different directions. Jiang Chuan immediately aimed at the meat-winged monster whose wing was just shot through by Jiang Shan. That monster had already pulled out the arrow and was angrily leaping towards them along the branches, preparing for revenge. Whoosh! The arrow left the string, turning into a phantom, reaching the monster in the blink of an eye, hitting it right in the thigh. Ah! The meat-winged monster emitted a piercing and resentful scream, falling from the sky and crashing to the ground. "Shoot you dead!" Jiang Chuan saw that he had hit the target and was quite excited. When there came the sound of whistling from behind him, Jiang Shan followed up with another arrow at the monster. Poof! The arrow pierced through the throat of the meat-winged monster, which struggled in dissatisfaction, wanting to roar, but couldn't make a sound. Jiang Chuan immediately shot a second arrow, this time directly into the monster's eye socket. The meat-winged monster convulsed for a moment, then gradually stopped moving. Dead. So they are this easy to kill. Shoot them all. Avenge our fallen kin. Jiang Shan and Jiang Chuan, as brothers, teamed up to shoot and kill a meat-winged monster. Completely igniting their fighting spirit, they shouted loudly, "Kill the yellow spring spirits!" All the hunters shouted loudly. Whoosh! 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 The battle between the meat-winged monsters and the awakened humans in the forest was about to erupt. Countless arrows pierced through the forest, crisscrossing among the leaves, heading towards these meat-winged monsters. Not all hunters had archery skills as precise as the Jiangshan brothers, but the arrows they shot still left the meat-winged monsters in a flurry. These meat-winged monsters were merely here to attend their coming-of-age ceremony, and their strength was only at the meridian opening stage, not particularly strong. The hunters of Changpan Valley were actually not weak either. They were merely suppressed by the moonprint before. Now, with their nature liberated, they fought more fiercely. Some meat-winged monsters broke through the arrow rain and pounced on a hunter, but the hunter roared, threw down the bow, pulled out an axe, and slashed at the meat-winged monster. The hunter's axe swung with a powerful wind, and the meat-winged monster tried to swipe the axe away with its claws. However, the hunter was very experienced. After treating the meat-winged monster as a regular desolate beast, he had no concerns. The axe spun and fiercely chopped at the lower half of the meat-winged monster. The meat-winged monster realized something was wrong and immediately flapped its wings to dodge, but it underestimated this hunter. The hunter clearly also had the power of the initial meridian opening stage, and once he controlled the spiritual power within, he concentrated almost all of it in his arms. Whoosh! The axe burst with a red glow, as if it had suddenly been sharpened, and slashed at the waist of the meat-winged monster, cutting it in half. The meat-winged monster let out a scream, and its severed body fell on the branches, spilling yellow blood all over the ground. It howled in angry pain, struggling on the ground. Meanwhile, 4 or 5 nearby hunters seized the opportunity to fully draw their bows and shot in unison, piercing the meat-winged monster through its core. Kill the spectral wraiths. The hunters, seeing spectral wraiths being taken down, became even more fierce, no longer fearing the spectral wraiths. They fought more passionately, venting their hatred for the spectral wraiths. As soon as a spectral wraith was hit, 7 or 8 more arrows would immediately follow to finish it off, turning the meat-winged monsters into porcupines and giving them no chance to survive. The meat-winged monsters probably didn't expect such a fierce counterattack from humans. In the training they received, they were told that humans of Changpan Valley were extremely weak, merely domesticated for slaughter as sacrifices with no combat prowess. Normally, for meat-winged monsters attending the coming-of-age ceremony, it was considered a lot if one died per year, It was usually 2 or 3 years before they heard of any weak meat-winged monster accidentally being killed. Over time, they looked down on the human race even more. However, today these meat-winged monsters paid the price for their arrogance. The battle lasted less than 15 minutes, and 7 spectral wraiths had already fallen in the forest, leaving only Fei Ding and Tuahi. Fei Ding and Tuahi were clearly panicked, especially Tuahi, who earlier claimed he wanted to kill Xiang Beifei but now watched his fellow monsters fall one by one, horrified. Run! Run! Get out of here! Tuahi fearfully watched the battle-hardened humans, utterly terrified, with no will to fight left. Having seen the archery skills of these people and watching Xiang Beifei raise his bow, he fled in terror. Fei Ding, too, was so scared his legs went limp, and he flapped his meat wings to follow. But the 2 meat-winged monsters hadn't run far before they crashed into an invisible wall, as if it had appeared out of thin air, unseen but solidly there. The 2 meat-winged monsters let out a scream, falling onto the branches, but dared not stay long and quickly ran to the other side, only to be blocked by another invisible wall. They desperately thrashed at the air, utterly terrified. Only 2 left, Xiang Beifei said. All the hunters observed the meat-winged monsters with fierce unity, their eyes burning with vengeful anger. Buzz! At that moment, the sound of a bowstring vibrating echoed from behind. The 2 meat-winged monsters shrieked in fright and quickly flew to the side, only to crash into the air with a bang, the 2 monsters colliding in panic and falling to the ground. But upon closer inspection, they realized that Xiang Beifei had merely pulled an empty string, without even knocking an arrow. These are the meat-winged monsters you're afraid of. They're nothing but useless creatures, startled birds, Xiang Beifei said to the hunters beside him. The hunters, seeing the 2 meat-winged monsters terrified by Xiang Beifei, realized these monsters were no different from ordinary desolate beasts. You disgusting creatures, killing so many of us every year. Now it's time for you to pay with blood, Zhang Shan shouted, pulling up his bow. Blood for blood. All the hunters roared, aiming their arrows at the 2 monsters. Whoosh! 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 Countless sounds of arrows slicing through the air filled the atmosphere, as dense as a swarm of arrows shot at the 2 once arrogant meat-winged monsters. Ah! The screams echoed through the forest, as the 2 meat-winged monsters were pierced with no less than 100 arrows, with some hunters shooting several more arrows in rage, turning the 2 monsters into hedgehogs on the spot. Watching the last 2 meat-winged monsters dissolve into yellow water, all the hunters breathed a sigh of relief, smiles of victory appearing on their faces. This is so satisfying. I feel like I could go another 300 rounds with these meat-winged monsters. Zhang Chuan laughed loudly. Now he had the confidence to battle these yellow spring spirits. The other hunters felt the same way, believing they hadn't killed enough yet and should take the opportunity to vent all their anger at the yellow spring spirits. Everyone, clean up, recover any arrows that can be reused, and tend to the wounded brothers. Zhang Shan directed the hunters, then turned his attention to Zhang Dai. Zhang Dai had just been pierced through the thigh by 1 meat-winged monster, and blood still flowed from it, though bound with grass and wrapped in cloth. The blood had soaked through. Seeing Xiang Beifei lead all the hunters to shoot and kill the once invincible yellow spring spirits with bows and arrows, Zhang Dai's face went through a mix of expressions. Are you all right? Zhang Shan walked over and asked. I'm all right, Zhang Dai said reluctantly. Let me take a look. Zhang Shan wasn't one to hold grudges. They were all humans, and facing the yellow spring spirits, helping each other was crucial. He inspected Zhang Dai's injury closely and began attempting to stop the bleeding with his spiritual power. This ability was a bit unfamiliar to Zhang Shan, but he believed he succeeded, as it was rather standard for those in the Meridian opening stage. Zhang Dai also noticed changes in his wound. Much of the pain had subsided. After a while, he murmured quietly, "Thank you. No need." Zhang Shan shook his head. Zhang Dai glanced at Xiang Beifei standing nearby and gritted his teeth, saying, I apologize. I was wrong to say those foolish things about your son this morning. He had strongly rejected Xiao Houzi earlier that morning, But he witnessed Xiao Houzi's actions just now, encouraging hunters and orchestrating a counterattack against the Yellow Spring spirits, successfully eliminating 11 of them. Moreover, right in front of the meat-winged monster, Xiao Houzi used the methods the meat-winged monsters previously used to toy with humans to kill the monster itself, giving the hunters a sense of triumph. It's good that you understand. Xiao Houzi merely lost his memory. He isn't any Yellow Spring spirit. He's a normal person, capable of killing Yellow Spring spirits just like us all. Jiang Shan said sternly. Jiang Dai bowed his head in deep shame, but as a man who could bend when needed, he raised his head to Xiang Beifei and said, Xiao Houzi, Uncle Dai here apologizes to you. I shouldn't have said what I did this morning. I'll explain to everyone when we get back. Xiang Beifei turned around and said, No problem. We all should unite against these meat-winged monsters. Meat-winged monsters? Xiao Houzi. You give them such weird but fitting names. Jiang Dai forced a smile. His impression of Xiao Houzi had completely changed. The amnesic Xiao Houzi had become more courageous, which was a good thing. Xiang Beifei wasn't one to hold grudges either. Life here was harsh for everyone, and he wouldn't dwell on it with Jiang Dai. Seeing the meat-winged monsters gradually turning into Yellow Spring water, Xiang Beifei once again immersed his breath soil into the Yellow Spring water. However, he now started planning the next step. The hunters here could defeat the meat-winged monsters because he used respected as a criterion to block the moonprint on the hunters' arms, allowing them to freely control their trained spiritual power, advancing their strength. But without respected as a criterion, hunters constrained by the moonprint couldn't possibly defeat the meat-winged monsters. Thus, after returning, he needed to spend time assisting everyone in Changpan Valley to remove the moonprints on their arms. Before doing this, he must make the humans in Changpan Valley see the true face of the Yellow Spring spirits, helping them understand that the Yellow Spring spirits are essentially the moon gods who are guarding them. Actually, he could have left one alive earlier, forcing the meat-winged monster to reveal its true form, but Xiao He already informed him that these meat-winged monsters had just reached adulthood, meaning they weren't very strong nor knowledgeable about the moon god race. Thus, it was better to leave them to the hunters to kill to boost their confidence. He decided to capture Carrie, the mentor of these meat-winged monsters. Carrie, with God-refining strength, definitely knew quite a lot. Xiao He, how are things on your side? Xiang Beifei asked in his mind. Woof woof, woof, woof woof. Xiao He indicated that the group it was following had also been attacked by meat-winged monsters, but it swiftly annihilated those monsters, only leaving a few wounded humans, but thankfully, no fatalities. The meat-winged monsters were too weak. It killed 8 of them. What about Era? Awo, 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 awo. Since Era got the system and entered the heavenly connection realm, it was also able to contact Xiang Beifei from afar, stating confidently that it used its big tail to smack down 10 meat-winged monsters. It even encountered 2 God-refining level meat-winged monsters, supposedly mentors, and took them down too. Couldn't you leave one intact? Awo. Never mind, it's my fault. I should have told you earlier. But for the remaining meat-winged monsters, don't kill them, capture them alive. Xiang Beifei instructed. Both Era and Xiao He agreed it was no problem. Era, change the terrain of the forest, guide the hunters towards that gorge. I'll be waiting there. Xiang Beifei said. The wooden Kirin could control trees, reigning sovereignly over this forest. All its trees were its eyes, making it virtually impossible for meat-winged monsters to evade Era's perception. Awo, Xiao He, you also find a way to do the same. We'll meet up over there. Woof woof. Xiao He wondered how it would guide without being seen by the hunters or having control over trees. Use your imagination, Xiang Beifei said. Xiao He, naturally clever, always burst with ideas. Though Era might run into hiccups with tasks, Xiao He was consistently reliable. Woof! Xiao He was thrilled. Imagination allowed vast possibilities. In the dense forest, chaos reigned. Trees bore countless holes, arrow marks dotted the scene. Even leaves had vacant holes from arrows piercing through, evidence of a fierce battle fought here. A handsome young lad stood atop the branches in the woods, aloof as he surveyed this place. He was Rock, acclaimed as the strongest meat-winged monster among those participating in this year's coming-of-age ceremony. Rock stood beside a tree, inhaling the scent from the marks on its trunk, and his brow slightly furrowed. The smell of Yellow Spring Corpse water. The presence of Yellow Spring Corpse water here was highly peculiar, as Yellow Spring didn't flow to this side. If it wasn't Yellow Spring, there was only one explanation. His companions were slain. Which worthless fool was so useless to be killed by human livestock? Rock sneered dismissively, but soon felt something was amiss because multiple spots here had traces of Yellow Spring Corpse water, suggesting several spots had them. This meant many moon god companions had died. How is this possible? How could humanity kill so many of our companions? Rock moved gracefully through the forest, examining traces, soon discovering footprints, leading deep into a gorge ahead. Something's off. Rock's heart was wary. Although arrogant, he wasn't careless. Looking down upon humanity, he maintained vigilance. At this point, several sounds echoed through the forest. Rock glanced over to see their mentor, Carrie. Mentor Carrie, our companions were killed by human livestock, Rock stated. I know. I saw the lingering traces over there. I came to investigate this. Carrie's face appeared grim. He had been tracking the students' movements, only soon realizing several students lost contact. Disturbingly, these occurrences were right under his nose. Yet he knew nothing of the specifics. Carrie's face was unsightly now. Even with his currently holy appearance, he still exuded an aura of coldness. He had brought his students out to hunt humans as sacrifices, but several of them had been counterkilled by what he considered the inferior human race. This was a very serious teaching accident. He didn't dare report back yet because the source of the problem was unclear. Reporting rashly would only make him seem incompetent and drag him further into trouble, so he needed to investigate thoroughly. Instructor Carrie, I don't understand. How can such an inferior species as humans have the ability to kill so many of our tribe members? Rock, as a proud young genius of the Moon God tribe, always held disdain for humans, viewing them as merely livestock. How could they be formidable? Carrie was silent for a moment, glanced at Rock and said, Have you forgotten how I taught you about the geniuses among the human race? Rock squinted his eyes and said, Are you saying that another genius has emerged among the human race this year? Although these meat-winged monsters constantly referred to the humans of Changpan Valley as an inferior race, any meat-winged monster with a bit of insight knew that if humans practiced cultivation, they could surpass them by a long stretch. The human race was inherently a highly gifted species, and in past years there had been many powerful young individuals. Despite being restricted by the moonprint goo worm, these young people had still honed their strength to near the limit, almost reaching the god-refining stage. If it weren't for the moonprint goo worm, some rare geniuses would have had the strength to explore the heavenly connection realm. However, those with powerful talents were swiftly killed by the meat-winged monsters and taken for research, while the average talented humans were kept as fodder to select for gifted ones, leaving the rest as sacrifices for the coming-of-age ceremonies of the new generation of meat-winged monsters. In the past, there were cases where newly matured meat-winged monsters were killed by humans, but this was rare and only occurred when a brilliant young human genius emerged to kill a meat-winged monster. Yet, when this happened, that genius human would be eradicated. Now, with so many meat-winged monsters suddenly dead, Carrie knew for sure that another genius had been born among the human race. They went that way. Rock pointed in the direction where the footprints led. Carrie's face darkened, and a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Let's go. Check it out. He had to personally eliminate this genius. Otherwise, many trainees would fail to complete their sacrificial ritual this year. Miles away from Changpan Valley lay a gorge with very rugged terrain, easy to defend but hard to attack. Even desolate beasts of the sky would find it challenging to land due to the rocky outcrops extending upwards like spears, forming a natural barrier that could injure unwary flying creatures. At the bottom of the gorge, many hunters were gathered, their nerves still rattled. Except for Jiang Shan's group, the other hunters looked terrified. They too had encountered powerful Yellow Spring spirits, but, unlike Xiang Beifei's team, had fled in panic rather than fight back. Era and Xiaohe had secretly protected these hunters, dealing with the pursuing meat-winged monsters. Yet the hunters didn't know what had killed the monsters, or even that they were dead, and simply ran ahead without pause. It was terrifying. I nearly got caught by the Yellow Spring Spirit. If not for a live vine suddenly whipping it away, I would probably be dead, an old man exclaimed, still shaken. In his view, it was the vine that saved him. Though such plant-type desolate beasts were rare, they weren't unheard of and, strange as it was, it had indeed saved him. Uncle Liang, you're lucky, but there's no need to run next time you see those Yellow Spring Spirits. Boldly take up your bow and fight. Shoot them dead. Jiang Chuan laughed heartily. Chuan Erger, why are you speaking nonsense? Can you really shoot that Yellow Spring Spirit dead with a bow and arrow? The old hunter's eyes widened. He was the village's veteran hunter, named Jiang Dongliang, nearly 70, but still unable to resist joining this Meng Dong hunt. Of course, we just encountered 11 Yellow Spring Spirits earlier and shot them all dead. Not to mention, even Xiao Houzi took down 2. Jiang Chuan rubbed his bowstring with pride. His bow thrummed as he pulled it, showcasing his satisfaction. What? You shot 11 Yellow Spring Spirits? Xiao Houzi even shot 2. You're just bragging. Uncle Liang didn't believe it and suspiciously glanced at Xiao Houzi. It's true. The 40 to 50 of us all joined the battle under Xiao Houzi's rallying call. Boy, the way those arrows flew was cathartic. Nothing has ever been more satisfying. Now we just want to encounter more Yellow Spring Spirits. Haven't killed enough yet. The other hunters corroborated, explaining how Xiao Houzi had inspired them to fight back against the Yellow Spring Spirits. Every hunter who participated in that battle was now full of confidence, each sharpening their arrows, ready for another bout with the meat-winged monsters. This made the other hunters uneasy. One person could lie, but 45 people, surely they couldn't all have colluded to bluff? Moreover, Jiang Dai, who had strongly opposed Xiao Houzi earlier that morning, now came forward to testify, adding credence to their actions. Even Jiang Dai, who was quite respected in the village, changed his attitude, which says a lot about the situation. The other hunters were listening to Jiang Chuan and his group boasting, and soon quite a few hunters rushed into the canyon, shouting in panic, looking terrified. Quicksand! It's quicksand! It's terrifying. Not only are there Yellow Springs evil spirits, but also quicksand. The quicksand monsters are so frightening that we were immobilized, and then they charged at us. The hunters shouted in horror. Woof woof! Xiaohe proudly came running with Yumong, and Xiang Beifei let it act freely. Xiaohe used breath soil to sweep away all the hunters, then immediately stabilized them with slabs, and the stabilized humans were helplessly pulled over like paper. You're playing too freely. Xiang Beifei stroked his forehead, feeling somewhat helpless. Xiaohe simply brought the humans over, making explanations even harder. But luckily, none of the humans here were injured. Everyone was still alive, considered a good omen. Woof woof! Xiaohe claimed that in addition to bringing the humans, it had discovered some meat-winged monsters along the way and conveniently bonked them with slabs. You captured meat-winged monsters? How many? Xiang Beifei's eyes lit up. Woof woof! Xiaohe bent its 2 dog paws into a gesture to indicate 9. That's good. Keep searching. There must be more meat-winged monsters in the forest. Xiang Beifei glanced at the hunters engaged in discussion. He needed all the hunters to learn how to deal with meat-winged monsters, and these 9 would help build their confidence. Era, you look for more meat-winged monsters, capture them alive, and use them as targets. Awoo! Era dashed over, seeking credit. It had captured 6 and trapped them in cages. Bring them here first, then keep searching. Xiang Beifei wouldn't show any mercy for these meat-winged monsters. For over 3,000 years, the number of humans in Changpan Valley was kept around 10,000. Any more than that would be killed, never allowing the size of the human population to expand. This meant humans in Changpan Valley had been slaughtered by millions. Over 10 million humans had been mercilessly hunted by meat-winged monsters in various cruel ways, becoming sacrifices to the Yellow Springs. They didn't just hunt humans during the coming-of-age ceremony. They would also hunt when the human population spiked. Now, it's time for these meat-winged monsters to pay the price. Xiang Beifei quietly slipped away when no one was watching. Xiaohe and Era had confined the meat-winged monsters in a more discreet corner, trapped within wooden and breath soil cages, angrily beating the cages, trying to break free. However, these cages were controlled by breath soil and Era's trees, impossible to break easily. Upon seeing Xiang Beifei approach, the meat-winged monsters realized it was just a human and grew even angrier. "You lowly beast! Let us out, or I'll kill you. You ignorant human, you're doomed. Mentor Carrie must know our situation, and when we get out, we'll tear you limb from limb. Being torn limb from limb is too lenient. We'll dig out this beast's innards one by one and eat them soaked in the water of the Yellow Springs." The meat-winged monsters roared in anger, unaware of what the human before them meant. They didn't even know some of their kind had been killed, as they were merely wandering in the woods searching for humans, pondering the most entertaining ways to butcher them, only to be captured by Era and Xiaohe. In their perception, humans were feeble. Even if captured, they assumed it was only due to human traps, not feeling these humans dared to truly act against them, hence their arrogance. "You seem to misunderstand the situation." Xiang Beifei coolly raised his eyelids, sizing up the meat-winged monsters, and slowly said, "Right now, it's the human race deciding your fate. You dare to kill us? You despicable little beast from the human race, have the guts to let us out for a one-on-one fight. I'll break every single bone of yours." The meat-winged monster shouted angrily. "Release you? Of course, you first then." Xiang Beifei lightly waved a hand, pulling the soil cage with the meat-winged monster in front of him, then opened the cage. The meat-winged monster was momentarily stunned, not expecting Xiang Beifei to be so agreeable and actually open the cage to let it out. But it quickly reacted, its facial muscles contorted as it sneered viciously. "You're eager to die. I'll grant your wish." Swoosh! The meat-winged monster rapidly dashed out of the cage, lunging at Xiang Beifei. However, Xiang Beifei extended a finger, casting a spiritual power bolt to immobilize the meat-winged monster, saying, "I'm not interested in killing you." He waved his hand again, and the meat-winged monster was dragged away by Xiang Beifei's spiritual power from the mountain pass toward where the hunters were gathered. Your meat-winged monster's coming-of-age ceremony is precisely the human race's counterattack ceremony. Enjoy it well. Xiang Beifei gazed at the meat-winged monster. The meat-winged monster was thrown against a cliff wall by the spiritual power, letting out a screech that drew the attention of hunters below. Seeing the meat-winged monster, they exclaimed, "It's a Yellow Spring evil spirit." Most hunters stepped back several paces in fright, panically trying to grab their weapons, and some even thought of running away. However, led by Jiang Shan and Jiang Chuan, the hunters' eyes lit up, shouting, "Just in time! Brothers, raise your arrows." After the earlier victory, Jiang Chuan and the hunters were no longer afraid of meat-winged monsters. Seeing one actually chase them, they immediately drew arrows from their bows. "Raise your arrows! Raise your arrows!" The experienced hunters boldly drew their weapons, their courage fully displayed, unlike other hunters. The meat-winged monster laughed upon seeing so many humans. "Now I can carefully pick a sacrifice from this flock of beasts." Yet, it quickly noticed something amiss, as some hunters had their bows aimed directly at it. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless arrows immediately flew through the air, with Jiang Chuan shooting the hardest, striking the left arm of the meat-winged monster. "Ah! Damn you beasts! I'll kill you!" The meat-winged monster cried out bitterly. Then more arrows came its way, leaving it horrified at having underestimated these humans. Puffed, puffed, puffed. The meat-winged monster became a live target, its body pierced by countless arrows, its cries echoing incessantly. It distinctly remembered the seniors who underwent the coming-of-age ceremony saying humans were frail and their arrows couldn't penetrate their defenses. Yet now it was shot into a sieve. But it could no longer ponder the impossible, as in an instant, Its head was struck by several arrows, directly pierced, dying violently. Uncle Liang, see? These Yellow Springs evil spirits can indeed be killed, Jiang Chuan said with a smile to Uncle Liang, who was watching in a daze. They actually killed it. Uncle Liang, who had lived for many years, never imagined this, as it was rumored that Yellow Springs evil spirits were impervious to weapons. Then how could they be pierced by an arrow? At this moment, Xiang Beifei released the remaining meat-winged monsters too. A dozen meat-winged monsters were shouting on the cliffs, making many hunters' hearts pound. Jiang Chuan exclaimed, "Uncle Liang, what are you waiting for?" Xiao Houzi said that only by conquering fear. Yes, the Yellow Springs evil spirits have a trait. The more we fear them, the stronger they are, becoming impervious to weapons. If we conquer fear, they weaken and can be shot down. Jiang Chuan had seemingly become Xiang Beifei's spokesperson. Uncle Liang, half skeptical, knocked an arrow. At this moment, he suddenly felt as if a mysterious power had appeared within him, spreading to every corner of his body. It was very abrupt, yet it made him feel all the energy in his body became smooth. Swish! Uncle Liang, still bewildered, let the arrow fly, and it instantly pierced through one of the meat-winged creatures. This! Uncle Liang was stunned himself. In the past, he had fought against the evil spirits of the underworld, and his arrows could hardly damage their skin. But now he managed to do it, which made him quite surprised. In fact, he also possessed the strength of the Meridian opening stage. Without the restriction of the moonprint, he could naturally exert power of the later Meridian opening stage and injure the meat-winged monsters. Kill the underworld spirits. Kill them. Seeing the meat-winged creatures continuously being shot down, more and more hunters started to rally. They began to counterattack those meat-winged creatures, and the valley seemed to be raining arrows, taking down those meat-winged creatures. Only then did the hunters realize how weak the meat-winged monsters were. They couldn't withstand the arrows at all. The power within each hunter gradually awakened. They shouted and vented their hatred towards the underworld spirits with their bows and arrows. But what the hunters did not see were two figures standing atop the hidden cliffs, coldly watching everything. Surprisingly, it was Carrie and Rock. By the time these two arrived, all the meat-winged creatures had been shot until only a puddle of underworld ichor remained, making it impossible to stop them. These bastards dare to rebel. I'll go kill them. Rock was furious, and in an instant, the white feathers on his back shed. Lumps of flesh swelled on his skin, transforming instantly into a meat-winged monster. As soon as they show their killing intent, they transform. In Rock's eyes, only the moon god race was qualified to slaughter the human race mercilessly using various brutal methods. But the human race must not resist and could only endure obediently. Anyone who resisted would die more miserably. However, Carrie remained calm and said, "With your strength, it's no different from seeking death." Now that Changpan Valley had begun to counterattack the meat-winged monsters, even with Rock's prowess, he absolutely couldn't withstand these humans. As it stood, the strongest among the humans could kill Rock one-on-one. But do we just watch these lowly beings kill our kin? Rock spat fiercely. Carrie chuckled coldly and said, "It's evident Changpan Valley has produced a human genius this year. This genius is rallying the humans for retaliation. Human geniuses must be eliminated. We just need to openly take him away. No need to lift a finger." His gaze fell on Xiang Beifei among the crowd. These humans constantly discussed Xiao Houzi. Xiao Houzi must be that genius. Once we take Xiao Houzi away, we can do as we please with him, and your coming-of-age ceremony can continue. Carrie had the ability to snatch Xiao Houzi directly, but as a mentor, he should not interfere arbitrarily with the meat-winged monster's coming-of-age ceremony. So he decided to use the simplest method. Rock understood and nodded. "So that's how it is. I understand." He calmed the killing intent within himself. After it vanished, the yellow lumps on his body began to shrink. His horns gradually disappeared, and pure feathers slowly regrew on the pair of meat wings on his back. In a flash, Rock transformed back into a dashing young man. If we enter in this form with a mere mention, these foolish humans will eagerly hand over Xiao Houzi to us. After all, we are the divine presence they revere, Carrie said with a smile. Wise mentor. Rock had great admiration for Carrie. By entering the valley in this form, the hunters would immediately kneel in reverence, crying out for divine protection and voluntarily surrender the pride of the human race. Without shedding a drop of blood, they could cruelly trample and torment the pride of the human race. What could be more delightful than this? Remember, follow my lead. Don't reveal your killing intent. When you appear before the humans in this form, you must not transform in front of them. Carrie warned again. This was a strict rule because if the humans discovered that the meat-winged monsters were their revered divine lords, they would be hard to control and unlikely to obediently worship the moon god in the future. Understood, Rock said. Actually, Rock already understood without being told. All meat-winged monsters knew this from the day they began training. Of course, in the forest, the meat-winged monsters couldn't revert at the brink of death because they needed to suppress the killing intent to appear sacred. The new generation of meat-winged monsters had too little control to restrain their hatred towards humans at such moments. Hence, they couldn't revert to the moon god's form. If they could, humans wouldn't kill them in their original form. In the valley, everyone was now boiling with excitement. Every hunter had comprehended Jiang Chuan's theory of overcoming fear. They all realized they could kill the underworld spirits, and their confidence grew even stronger. So the underworld spirits grow stronger with our fear. If we're not afraid, they weaken. We've learned something. To think Xiao Houzi was the first to discover this truth. Losing memory wasn't all bad after all. The hunters sang praises to Xiao Houzi, for if it hadn't been for his discovery, there might have been a large number of casualties today. But at this moment, a white light suddenly shone above the canyon. This light was gentle, like a holy light descending from the sky, illuminating every hunter in the canyon. The white light was pure, like a spring breeze caressing the face, warm and peaceful. Under the white glow, two people with holy wings descended from the sky, their feathers so pure and gentle, as if messengers sent from heaven, handsome and elegant, inspiring awe. This is the holy light of the divine envoy, Uncle Liang said excitedly. It's the divine envoys. It's really the divine envoys. Many hunters looked at Carrie and Rock with reverence. The radiance on these two was just too conspicuous, dazzlingly bright. Carrie and Rock listened to the hunters' discussions, greatly satisfied. As expected, as long as they appeared in this manner, they could surely command the attention of the audience. Next, they should be kneeling to welcome us, right? Rock asked in a voice only they could hear. The livestock of the human race worship our kind of image very much. Carrie had encountered the human race before. Every time he appeared in front of them, they would worship him, and he enjoyed this feeling of trampling humans underfoot. Now he was also waiting for these hunters in the canyon to kneel on the ground and pray for his blessing. But as moments passed, the hunters of the human race seemed to only be watching these two, with none kneeling or saluting, as if they had forgotten all etiquette. This made Carrie and Rock frown. Something wasn't right. Why did these lowly humans suddenly not kneel? Xiang Beifei watched the two calmly, with his respected as a criterion present. These hunters would never kneel. Are the divine envoys here to save us? Someone excitedly asked. Save us, my ass. We already have confidence to deal with the netherworld spirits now. Divine envoys, did you see just now? We shot the netherworld spirits full of holes. Jiang Chuan laughed. Indeed. How do you think our methods of dealing with the netherworld spirits are? Isn't it satisfying? Jiang Dai also spoke. The divine envoys must also find it satisfying. After all, the divine envoys are on our side, aren't they? Uncle Liang asked. Carrie and Rock were really fuming inside. Their own kind had been slaughtered by these hunters, and now these hunters had the nerve to question their feelings? Yet on the surface, they had to remain calm, and could only say gently, Of course we stand with you. Do the two of you also think that those hairless, hideous, parentless, beast-like cruel and inhumane meat-winged monsters deserve to die? Xiang Beifei spoke up. He had no reservations in cursing the meat-winged monsters, pointing directly at them as he cursed. Carrie and Rock almost exploded with anger. The bastard dared to curse them right to their face. Yet they couldn't retort. Carrie's eyes flashed with cold light, but he still said with a gentle expression, "Perhaps, perhaps, only perhaps. Do you two divine envoys think that killing meat-winged monsters is not the correct thing to do?" Xiang Beifei asked. Carrie was already quite impatient inside. What on earth was going on with this foolish human? How dare he question my words? But he continued to smile. Slaughter is not a way to solve problems. Oh? Slaughter is not a way to solve problems. Do you, divine envoy, think that shooting dead the meat-winged monsters with arrows is actually a wrong solution? Are you speaking on behalf of the meat-winged monsters? Xiang Beifei feigned surprise. No need to speak nonsense, we have always been protecting you, but we always advocate for peace and broad-mindedness, living in harmony. We just don't like to see slaughter. Carrie still said gently, "Oh, so that's how it is. So you divine envoys pretend to be blind when the meat-winged monsters brutally slaughter us humans, but suddenly see clearly when we shoot the meat-winged monsters, and even think we are narrow-minded for doing so." Xiang Beifei retorted. All the hunters looked at each other, furrowing their brows. Xiao Houzi's words were harsh, but they were justified. They all disliked what the divine envoy had to say. One must know that in previous years, these yellow spring demons used various cruel tactics to harm humans, taking pleasure in torturing them, employing countless despicable and cruel methods, leading to numerous human deaths at their hands. Yet the divine envoy never appeared in time to save them. Everything depended on humans finding their own ways to escape, as many as could manage. Now these hunters were merely venting, finally seizing an opportunity to organize a counterattack, to shoot the yellow spring demons with arrows. And yet these two divine envoys descended from the sky, accusing them of being narrow-minded? Do only yellow spring demons get to kill humans, but humans killing yellow spring demons is considered narrow-minded? All the hunters felt anger in their hearts towards the words of the divine envoy. Carrie obviously already had intentions of killing, but still said, "That's not what I meant. I just wanted to tell everyone that an eye for an eye leads nowhere. I hope you can maintain a peaceful mindset in dealing with this matter." What a load of crap about an eye for an eye. When those yellow spring beasts were killing us, why didn't you so-called divine envoys say that an eye for an eye leads nowhere? So we're just supposed to be killed by those beasts? Are you hypocrites out of your minds? Why don't you tell those yellow spring beasts to stop the slaughter? To keep a peaceful mindset? Jiang Chuan suddenly shouted in anger. But after saying this, even Jiang Chuan himself was shocked. He actually spoke such disrespectful words to the divine envoy. This was to commit a grave offense. If this had been in the tribe before, the elders would have caught anyone talking to the divine envoy like this and cut their tongue. Many hunters were also very surprised, not expecting Jiang Chuan to say such things. But for some reason, today they seemed much bolder, daring to shoot the yellow spring demons, daring to rebuke the divine envoy, even daring to question the words of the divine envoy. At this moment, Jiang Shan suddenly spoke out. "Since you divine envoys don't like to see slaughter, why not stop the yellow spring demons from coming to kill us? You have always instilled us with ideas of peace and broad-mindedness, but you have never expressed these ideas to the yellow spring demons. I have found that every time in the past when the yellow spring demons slaughter us humans, you always arrive late. Only when the killing is nearly complete do you show up. Do you have some connection with the yellow spring demons?" With Jiang Shan speaking up, all the hunters could no longer sit still. Each hunter thought about it carefully and found that Jiang Shan's words were true. The facts were indeed like this. In the past, when they were too weak to fight against the yellow spring demons, they prayed for the divine envoy to save them. Even if the divine envoy arrived late, they were still grateful for the salvation, not daring to question why the powerful moon god didn't come sooner. But today, it seemed as if everyone had discarded the mindset instilled by the moon god, starting to have their own thoughts, as if they suddenly awakened, breaking free from the shackles of the moon god. These divine envoys are suspicious. They suddenly feel very hypocritical. Uncle Liang also spoke, but then quickly gasped, covering his mouth in shock, exclaiming, "How could I dare to say such things?" But more and more hunters began to speak up. "It seems the divine envoys allow the Yellow Spring demons to kill us. Right? These divine envoys have never helped us eliminate those Yellow Spring demons. Do they think it's normal for Yellow Spring demons to kill us?" Countless hunters began voicing the doubts in their minds, causing Carrie and Rock's expressions to darken slightly. "What's going on? Carrie, wasn't it said that the livestock of the human race have always believed our words without question?" Rock asked in a low voice. Carrie was also unclear, as humans in Chongpan Valley considered those with wings as gods. Due to cultural suppression, their thoughts were exceedingly simple, and each person from a young age had unwavering faith in the moon god. But today's situation was clearly very unusual. Instinctively, Carrie turned his gaze to Xiao Houzi from the human race, but quickly realized that Xiang Beifei was also looking at him. Carrie's heart skipped a beat. For some reason, he felt an inexplicable fear while meeting the gaze of this human. Carrie and Rock originally planned to arrive here with their holy appearance, receive the worship of the hunters, then use their status as divine envoys to take away Xiao Houzi who first rebelled, and finally slaughter these hunters to complete the meat-winged monster's coming-of-age ceremony. But the development of things was unexpected. Even Carrie did not anticipate that the hunters here would not kneel upon seeing the divine themselves. That's one thing, but they even dared to question the behavior of the divine envoys. "Divine envoy, you have to give us an explanation. We trusted you so much, yet you speak for the evil spirits of the underworld. You make us so disappointed. How can we worship you in the future?" The more the hunters thought about it, the angrier they became. When they dared to question the moon god, they would discover increasingly more suspicious points about the moon god's so-called appearances to save people, as these divine envoys never arrived in time. Currently, Carrie and Rock were suddenly surrounded by the fierce hunters. The two meat-winged monsters realized that something was amiss. Even if their bodies continued to emit holy light, it seemed to have no influence on the hunters. "Carrie Mentor, why do I feel like the hunters seem out of control?" Rock asked in the unique communication method of the meat-winged monsters. Carrie stared at the emotional hunters for a long time before coldly responding. "It seems the human minds in Chongpan Valley have enlightened once again." "Enlightened? You mean these humble beasts are preparing to rebel again?" Rock said in surprise. These newly matured meat-winged monsters naturally learned about the past of humans in Chongpan Valley during their training. Humans in Chongpan Valley have been raised and trapped here by the meat-winged monsters for over 3,000 years. Naturally, they can't be content. Carrie nodded slightly, saying, "Yes, for over 3,000 years, there are always certain phases when human society in Chongpan Valley starts developing to a relatively civilized stage. They begin to distrust the moon god. Their people's minds enlighten, wanting to rise by themselves and resist our control. I understand. Next they will be brewing conspiracies, no longer worship the moon god, planning to rebel against us." "That's right, but these human race beasts can't stir up any waves. Slaves remain slaves. These human slaves can never become masters. They're too weak. We'll directly kill those human leaders who rebel, using hard measures to suppress them, destroy their civilization, let them return to the primitive state overnight, starting again as barbaric people who unlearn the past." Carrie's voice was extremely cold. "The human race has great potential. They will develop from primitive tribes all the way to civilized society. But the meat-winged monsters never give humans in Chongpan Valley any chance to rise. Once there's a possibility, they directly squelch it, sacrificing all humans as offerings, leaving only those who can be controlled." Rock nodded slightly. A faint sneer surfaced at the corner of his mouth. "I understand. Seems now is the time for us to rectify these human beasts. Pity these beasts, still don't understand the disaster approaching, yet have time to call us out, unknowingly. We are the evil spirits of the underworld. Ha ha ha." Rock looked up, scanning these hunters. But soon, he suddenly felt something was wrong, because the atmosphere suddenly became very quiet. Just now, those hunters were clearly questioning the moon god. But at this moment, the hunters were all looking at them with shocked and even angry eyes. Jiang Shan and several human experts took up bows and arrows, aiming at Rock and Carrie. What? You are actually the evil spirits of the underworld. Moon God is the evil spirit of the underworld. Uncle Liang glared angrily at the two meat-winged monsters. Despicable and shameless. It turns out in your eyes, we're just livestock to be slaughtered at will. Jiang Chuan shouted. How can you be so deceitful and vicious? It was you who have been slaughtering us humans. So ruthless. I've been blind all these years. 3 years ago, you broke into the village and killed my entire family. I was praying for you to come and rescue. Turns out, it was you who killed all my relatives. Return my relatives' lives. All the hunters were furious. Many hunters even recalled the past slaughtered by the meat-winged monsters. They all became angry. Carrie and Rock were both stunned. What happened? Aren't we communicating in a way that only we can hear? How did they hear? Rock was very astonished. Every meat-winged monster has its own way of communication. Similar to neonatal communication, only their companions can hear it. Humans can't possibly hear, but unexpectedly, these hunters seem to hear their heartfelt voices clearly. It turns out you communicate in such a way, really a good method. I really misjudged you. You filthy things actually used this method to deceive us for so many years. Uncle Liang angrily shouted. Carrie's face also changed. Their heartfelt voices seemed to have been made public. How is this possible? Is there a problem with this canyon? Carrie and Rock really couldn't understand. This time they unexpectedly blurted out the truth themselves. Once the truth is exposed, humans will definitely not be so easily controlled. If it was the past, humans who wanted to resist would indeed be directly suppressed. But these meat-winged monsters would never have imagined. Xiang Beifei arrived here. In order for the hunters in Changpan Valley to know the truth, he used respected as a criterion to create various realms. No need to revere the meat-winged monsters. No need to fear the so-called divine envoys, dared to question, and one more thing. Communication is allowed only in spoken words. This means that Carrie and Rock seem to be communicating in their minds earlier, but in reality, they spoke out loud, allowing all these hunters to clearly hear the thoughts of these two meat-winged monsters, while Carrie and Rock were completely unaware. This is the most powerful aspect of being respected as a criterion. These divine envoys treat us like livestock. It's fortunate that we've always believed in them. I'll fight you to the death. Uncle Liang is the oldest among these hunters and naturally takes care of all the hunters. The more he thinks, the angrier he becomes, looking at Carrie and Rock with fire in his eyes, wishing he could roast these two meat-winged monsters. Carrie and Rock found that their white feathers and sacred radiance were no longer effective, unable to intimidate these hunters, so they simply stopped pretending. Although I don't know why, it seems like it's time to solve this problem now. I originally wanted to let you live a little longer, but since you're so eager to die, I will fulfill your wish. Carrie's eyes revealed killing intent. At first, he just planned to capture Xiang Beifei and then continue to hunt down the remaining meat-winged monsters participating in the coming-of-age ceremony to massacre these hunters. But now that the hunters here are out of control and inexplicably know the truth, Carrie needs to kill all these hunters, not letting them spread today's events back to Changpan Valley. Swish! When Carrie and Rock's hearts filled with killing intent, the white feathers on their wings began to shed, revealing lumps all over their bodies. Their eyes became narrow, their mouths cracked, horns grew on their heads, and in the blink of an eye, the two noble and sacred divine envoys transformed into meat-winged monsters. Ah, they're indeed Huangquan evil spirits. The hunters retreated several steps in haste, shocked and frightened when they saw Carrie and Rock reveal their true forms. Carrie and Rock laughed coldly. Livestock remain livestock, so what if you're angry? Isn't it that you still lack the strength to oppose us? The fox's tail has finally shown itself? Xiang Beifei remained calm. Carrie looked at Xiang Beifei, squinting his eyes. You don't seem surprised? Should I be surprised? Xiang Beifei smiled lightly. Do you think you've hidden yourselves seamlessly? Why? Because of your strength or your intelligence? Carrie shouted in anger. You seek death. Buzz. A powerful aura burst forth from behind Carrie. Raging Huangquan soared like a pillar, spreading behind Carrie, pressing down on all hunters with terrifying force. This is the early stage strength of God refining. You despicable livestock. If you think you can oppose us, you're too naive. With your level of strength, I could wipe you out with a single breath. Carrie laughed coldly. Humans in Changpan Valley have always been suppressed. The strongest are only at the late stage of meridian opening because meat-winged monsters do not allow humans to cultivate to higher levels. Humans who manage to practice their moonprint to a full moon roughly reach the late stage of meridian opening and are directly taken away and killed. To this day, no human in Changpan Valley has broken through to the God-refining stage. Carrie is so confident because he knows his strength is out of reach for these pitiable hunters. Indeed, all the hunters were intimidated by Carrie's presence. This aura, in their eyes, was simply godlike, far beyond the level of the meat-winged monsters shot earlier. Retreat! Retreat! Prepare the bows and arrows. As the leader of these hunters, Zhang Shan immediately commanded all hunters to start defending. The hunters quickly notched arrows and drew their bows. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless arrows shot across the sky like meteors, heading towards Carrie and Rock. But Carrie just stood there, not even needing to rely on Huangquan. He simply exhaled a mouthful of yellow, foul air, which instantly turned into a barrier, blocking all the arrows. No match. Zhang Shan and other hunters' pupils contracted. They were simply no match for Carrie. Now all the hunters panicked, because even knowing the truth seemed useless. Oh no! This meat-winged monster is so strong. Sixth brother, what do we do now? Jiang Chuan asked urgently. Everyone looked at Jiang Shan because Jiang Shan was the strongest among them. If he couldn't defeat the meat-winged monsters, they would likely all be killed in this valley today. Calm down. Don't panic. The more we panic, the stronger they become. Jiang Shan tried to suppress the panic in his heart, solemnly instructing all hunters to quiet down. But he soon looked towards Xiang Beifei. Xiao Hozi, what should we do now? For some reason, Jiang Shan felt an inexplicable sense of trust in Xiao Hozi, even though he hadn't been his son since losing his memory. Since they began hunting, Xiao Hozi's every decision had been almost right. They're just two meat-winged monsters. Xiang Beifei smiled faintly and notched an arrow. Brat! Such arrogance! Carrie saw himself being disdained by a naive human kid and immediately lashed out with a fierce energy, heading straight for Xiang Beifei. However, Xiang Beifei had already released his arrow. The arrow was incredibly swift, breaking Carrie's energy in an instant, like lightning. Before Carrie could react, it pierced his wing and knocked him back. Carrie felt like he was struck by a powerful hammer, flying backward and crashing into Rock. The arrow pierced through Rock's wing too, pinning them both to the cliff. Ah! Carrie and Rock screamed in agony, clearly indicating this was far more than just stringing them together. It carried a mysterious power, silencing their abilities, preventing them from struggling. One arrow, two birds. The hunters marveled at Xiao Hozi, then looked at the once arrogant Carrie and Rock, now suffering immense pain, unable to break free. All right, go make a cage, lock them up, and take them back to the village. Xiang Beifei stowed his bow. No way. Huangquan evil spirits must not be taken back to the village. If they escape, they'll destroy the entire village. Uncle Liang shook his head anxiously. Xiang Beifei said, Uncle, you're aware now that the true form of the moon god humans worship is the meat-winged monster. If you don't take these two monsters back to the village, can you convince the stubborn elders there? But they... Uncle Liang felt embarrassed because he was one of the stubborn elders Xiao Hozi referred to before. His words filled him with shame, but he was still worried about the danger Huangquan evil spirits posed to everyone. Don't worry, they won't get out. Xiang Beifei glanced at the two meat-winged monsters. He had already severed their contact with other monsters, making it impossible for them to call for help. Before all the hunters arrived here, he had already set up a formation around the valley, preventing outside meat-winged monsters from knowing what was happening inside. Everyone looked at each other, somewhat skeptical of Xiao Houzi's words, but considering he could subdue these arrogant meat-winged monsters, they had no reason to doubt him. Without Xiao Houzi, they might all perish today. Go, make a wooden cage, Jiang Chuan shouted as he gathered several strong men and ran outside the valley. For these hunters, surviving in the crevices against desolate beasts in the vicinity, making a cage isn't difficult. Several strong men quickly crafted a large cage, using the nerves of iron beasts from the hunting cave as ropes to bind the hands and feet of the two meat-winged monsters. The nerves of the iron beast are very tough rope material, comparable to steel, yet flexible, and hunters often use them to make ropes, so they're considered the best tool for capturing meat-winged monsters. When the hunters caught the two meat-winged monsters, they were quite startled, as the two ugly creatures were still roaring and brandishing sharp claws and teeth. The hunters also feared being torn apart by the meat-winged monsters, but fortunately, everyone else aimed arrows at their heads. Brothers Jiang Shan and Jiang Chuan, as leaders, still managed to capture these two meat-winged monsters. This was their first time catching live meat-winged monsters, which was incredibly rare. Brothers, take them back. We must let the people of Chongpan Valley see the true reality, and not allow them to be deceived again. The hunters started to leave the canyon in droves, surrounding the two meat-winged monsters, watching them like tigers, never taking their eyes off the meat-winged monsters. In reality, these cages couldn't possibly contain the meat-winged monsters, but with Xiang Beifei around, even experts at the heavenly connection level couldn't escape once caught by him, let alone meat-winged monsters at the god-refining and meridian opening stages. Xiang Beifei instructed Xiaohe and Era to search the woods for other meat-winged monsters, determined to capture all the meat-winged monsters attending the adult ceremony, leaving them no chance of returning as they came to slaughter humans just upon adulthood. With the heartbeat system, Era leapt about cheerfully, determining the location of the meat-winged monsters through their heartbeat, then relying on control over the trees to directly bundle the meat-winged monsters. Era also possessed heavenly connection level strength, and when facing these meat-winged monsters, it was akin to beating up children. Along the way, Xiang Beifei also reminded the hunters to transport the prey from the hunting caves back, lest it spoil, since the people of Chongpan Valley still needed food and couldn't return empty-handed. A large group of hunters quickly returned to Chongpan Valley. The impressive team camouflaged themselves in the woods, looking spectacular. As the clan leader of Chongpan Valley, Jiang Feng traditionally did not participate in the hunt during Mengdong. This season was when the underworld spirits roamed, and if all men of Chongpan Valley went out, their strength would be dispersed. If ambushed, the loss would be severe, so a portion of young men were left to protect Chongpan Valley. At this time, seeing a large group of hunters suddenly pouring in from the entrance, Jiang Feng was a bit surprised and quickly came down to open the door. But at a glance he saw the underworld spirits trapped in the cages, and his expression changed slightly. What is going on with these underworld spirits? Jiang Feng cautiously drew his spear, pointing it straight at the two underworld spirits in the cages. We encountered the underworld spirits. This is no small matter. It's no small matter indeed. Uncle Liang stepped forward quickly as an elder and said. Upon hearing this, Jiang Feng's heart sank, and he asked seriously, Uncle Liang, what happened? Did you encounter an attack from the underworld spirits? Did anything happen to anyone? Every year during the Mengdong hunt, it was expected that hunters would face incidents to obtain sufficient food. This was unavoidable. Though unwilling to hear such bad news, Jiang Feng still needed to understand it to arrange for the aftermath. No one should have been harmed. But we did encounter the underworld spirits. However, all the underworld spirits were killed by us. Uncle Liang angrily said. You killed the underworld spirits, that's a good thing. But Uncle Liang, why do you look so angry? Jiang Feng asked puzzledly. Of course, I'm angry. The truth. We cannot continue being deceived by those hypocritical and disgusting divine envoys. We must let everyone in Changpan Valley know the ugly truth about the moon god, Uncle Liang said angrily, spitting as he talked. Jiang Feng was greatly shocked, thinking Uncle Liang was losing his mind, actually saying words that blasphemed the Divine Lord. Quickly reminded him, "Uncle Liang, are you okay? Did you get sunstroke? You mustn't speak nonsense." "Not sunstroke. I am determined to reveal the truth today, never to coexist with those winged birdmen." Uncle Liang grew more and more angry the more he thought, for his son also lost his life to an underworld spirit back in the day. Getting angrier the more he thought. In fury, he angrily pulled out the smoking pipe from his waist and struck it at the underworld spirits in the wooden cage. He treated the heads of the meat-winged monsters like wooden fish, knocking heavily several times, making a bang-bang-bang sound. Carrie and Rock were already fuming with rage, having never suffered such humiliation. Right then they wished to tear the audacious old man into pieces, but they couldn't move at all, utterly subdued by Xiang Beifei, helplessly allowing Uncle Liang to knock their heads with the pipe. Uncle Liang, not satisfied after knocking, spat heavily. Jiang Feng hastily advised, "Uncle Liang, I know your son once fell to the underworld spirits, but let's not act impulsively now. Let's clarify what's really happening here. These underworld spirits are actually the moon god we worship. They're cruel liars, playing us around like fools." Uncle Liang pointed at the meat-winged monsters as he spoke. Now those unaware, including Jiang Feng, grew uncertain, for in their view, the moon god was a sacred, inviolable deity, a pure and kind existence. How could it be associated with the likes of underworld spirits? This was a grave slander indeed. "Jiang Dongliang, what nonsense are you spouting? If you dare to blaspheme the Divine Lord again, we'll have no choice but to treat you harshly. We'll drive you and people like Xiao Hozi out of the village." At this moment, several respected elders from Changpan Valley also arrived. They were devoted worshippers of the moon god and would not allow anyone to speak disrespectfully about the Divine Lord. Last time, these same people were prejudiced against Xiao Hozi because he lost the moon print. But Uncle Liang was not the kind of person to have a good temper. He immediately exploded in a thunderous rage and said, "You stupid old ox, you're talking nonsense. If it weren't for Xiao Hozi organizing us against the underworld spirits, we probably wouldn't have made it back. If you dare to say you want to expel Xiao Hozi from the village again, I'll be the first to fight you." Uncle Liang stood in front of Xiang Beifei, like an old ox protecting its calf, furiously pulled out his axe and threw it toward the guy, with the axe spinning through the air and landing directly in the dirt in front of the old man's feet. "Liang Si, what madness is this?" The elder cursed as he staggered back several steps, almost falling in fright. With Uncle Liang's outburst, the other elders who wanted to speak up dared not say anything. The fact that Uncle Liang, despite his age, still dared to go out hunting proved he wasn't easy to mess with. If it really came to a fight, they probably wouldn't stand a chance. "All right, stop arguing. Let's hurry into the valley and clear things up. Uncle Liang, please calm down." Jiang Feng quickly came out to mediate. "Gather everyone in Changpan Valley here immediately. Today, we must reveal the truth to everyone. We can no longer be deceived by the underworld spirits and the moon god." Uncle Liang walked over, pulled the axe out of the ground, and shouted loudly. Uncle Liang, as an elder, still carried authority. Seeing him storming around with the axe, even the robust guards dared not delay. They opened the gates, let all the hunters in, and immediately went back to notify everyone in Changpan Valley. Soon, everyone in Changpan Valley, men and women, old and young, were alarmed. Upon hearing that the hunting men had returned and that there was important news to announce, they hurried over, fearing their male family members had died outside. Fortunately, during this Mengdong hunt, none of the hunters had any accidents. Xiang Beifei had protected everyone well. Many women and children breathed a sigh of relief, exchanging information about what happened, then looked fearfully at the two meat-winged monsters that had just been captured. When the cages holding the meat-winged monsters were brought before everyone, the people of Chongpan Valley exclaimed in shock, retreating one by one. Some women and children, upon seeing the underworld spirits, couldn't help but recall their deceased fathers and husbands, filled with grief and indignation. Everyone quiet down. The reason for gathering everyone here today is to explain something to you all. Uncle Liang stood on the high platform, scanning everyone, then turned his gaze to the wooden cage holding the meat-winged monsters and continued. This matter might shock you at first, but I must let you know the truth. Do you know where the underworld spirits come from? All the clan members looked at each other in confusion. They had only heard that the underworld spirits awakened around this time every year, appearing and disappearing mysteriously, attacking and slaughtering humans, only to vanish without a trace afterwards. But as for how they came about, there was no explanation. Of course, you don't know. If we hadn't captured these two underworld spirits today, there'd be no way to uncover the truth. Uncle Liang gritted his teeth as he looked at the meat-winged monsters and continued. In reality, the underworld spirits are those winged bird people of the moon god race. They're what we call the divine envoys. Even the divine lord exists among them. That's impossible. The divine envoys are our saviors in Chongpan Valley. How could they be underworld spirits? Exactly. Just a few years ago, when we were attacked by underworld spirits, it was the divine envoys who came to rescue us. Many in the tribe couldn't believe it. Bullshit. They were just putting on an act. Those disgusting, hypocritical bastards almost fooled us all. The underworld spirits are staging this to suppress our human development, preventing us from rising up, and they hunt us humans for sport. If I hadn't personally heard these meat-winged monsters' confessions, we'd still be in the dark, said Uncle Liang. Uncle Liang, your words aren't very convincing. Might you have been bewitched by the illusions of some desolate beast? After all, Jiang Feng and his group, who were guarding the village, hadn't seen the other side of the meat-winged monsters. What they saw was just Uncle Liang in thunderous rage, and aside from the hunters who went out to hunt, most of the people left in Chongpan Valley couldn't believe it. Uncle Liang also realized this problem and said to the hunters, we need to find a way to make these two turn back into the form of the divine envoys. Otherwise, they won't believe us. Carrie and Rock, hearing Uncle Liang's words, also sneered internally. Do you really think you can force us to change back into that form to convince all the humans? Dream on. Carrie knew very well that as long as he didn't revert to a holy appearance, the people of Chongpan Valley would never fully believe the hunter's words. There were more people in Chongpan Valley who hadn't seen them shapeshift than there were hunters. Only about 1,000 people went out hunting, while Chongpan Valley had tens of thousands. The hunters would simply be viewed as being influenced by encountering a strong desolate beast, mixing up underworld spirits with the moon god. Thinking the hunters couldn't prove it, Carrie's face showed a smug smile. Maintaining this form, he could incite internal conflict among Chongpan Valley's humans, making it a perfect opportunity for counterattack. Uncle Liang walked up to Carrie, knocked on Carrie's head with a smoking pipe, and shouted, "What are you two waiting for? Hurry up and turn back into those bird people." Carrie, being knocked on the head repeatedly by a human with a smoking pipe, was about to go crazy. Being hit on the head didn't actually hurt, but the humiliation was intolerable. As a divine envoy, whenever he came to Chongpan Valley, weren't all humans supposed to kneel and welcome him? But unexpectedly, these humans dared to knock on his head. To Carrie, this was a great humiliation. Carrie glared viciously at Uncle Liang and said, "Don't give me the chance to get out. Otherwise, I will surely tear you apart, smash your head bit by bit, and then devour your brains." Uncle Liang, targeted by Carrie's gaze, flinched but quickly shouted angrily back, "Even as a prisoner, you dare threaten me. Will you change or not? If not, I'll bash your head in first." Uncle Liang angrily knocked on the meat-winged monster's head. Carrie was almost laughing with anger. Was this human old man an idiot? This was a perfect opportunity to sow discord and make those still worshipping the moon god doubt the hunters. How could he possibly change? "You stupid humans, you really think?" Carrie sneered, ready to voice his sarcasm, But before he could finish, a strange aura seemed to envelop him, and suddenly all his resentment vanished from his mind, as if a switch had flipped, releasing all his murderous intent, truly becoming broad-minded and selfless. And at this moment, the tumors on Carrie's skin began to slowly retract. The skin became smooth, and feathers gradually started appearing on the meat wings, radiating a divine brilliance, turning him back into an approachable divine envoy. Ah, it really is a divine envoy. Many villagers, upon seeing Carrie suddenly transform from a meat-winged monster to a divine envoy, were stunned. They initially thought Uncle Yang was talking nonsense, confused between underworld spirits and divine envoys, but now everyone had seen with their own eyes. It was incredible. On the other side, Rock was also shocked. Weren't they supposed to maintain this form to incite human infighting? Why did Carrie's mentor transform back on his own? Even Uncle Liang was taken aback, looking at his smoking pipe, then at the meat-winged monster, puzzled. Is my pipe really that powerful? He had just angrily knocked on the underworld spirit's head to vent, not expecting it to transform this way. But soon, he realized something and exclaimed with joy. Could knocking them on the head make the underworld spirit turn into a divine envoy? That's great. I found the weakness of the underworld spirits. Uncle Liang looked over at Rock, who was still in the form of a meat-winged monster, then knocked on Rock's head with the pipe again. You, hurry up and change. Hurry and change. Change for me. Bang, bang, bang. Rock glared with resentment. How could he possibly yield? This was a prime chance to provoke internal strife among the humans. No way would he transform. Foolish humans, you really think? Rock sneered, but suddenly his hideous face started to transform as well. His appearance softened, revealing the form of a handsome young man from the moon god race, much to the uproar of all the people in Changpan Valley.